Neera Tanden conducted by the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform under the authority granted to it pursuant to House Rule 10. Accordingly, House Rule 10 grants the committee broad jurisdiction for the committee to conduct investigations of any matter at any time. This interview was requested by Chairman James Comer as part of the committee's investigation into President Biden's alleged mental and physical decline, the Biden White House's effort to hide that from the American people, and who was making decisions for the president. Can the witness please state her name and spell her last name for the record?
My name is Neera Tanden, and my last name is spelled Tanden.
Thank you. On behalf of the committee, I want to thank Ms. Tanden for appearing here today. The committee appreciates your appearance for the interview. My name is Jake Greenberg, and I'm the Chief Counsel for Investigations for Chairman Comer. Under the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform's rules, you are allowed to have an attorney present to advise you during this interview. I see that you have two. Do you have counsel representing you today?
I do.
In your personal capacity?
Yes.
Will counsel please identify themselves for the record?
Michael Bromwich, Senior Counsel, Steptoe, LLP.
Lillian Stevens, Associate, Steptoe, LLP.
For the record, starting with majority staff, can the additional staff members please introduce themselves with their name, title, and affiliation?
Mitch Benzine, General Counsel, Republican side.
Margaret Harker, Senior Advisor with the majority.
Billy Grant, Counsel for the majority.
Peter Spector, Professional Staff Member for the majority.
Can we go off the record? We can go back on the record.
There are also members in the room. Would the members like to identify themselves for the record?
James Comer, Kentucky.
Eli Crane, Arizona.
Thank you. Ms. Tanden, before we begin, I'd like to go over the ground rules for this interview. The questioning will proceed in rounds. The majority will ask questions for an hour, and then the minority will have an opportunity to ask questions for an hour if they so choose. To the extent members have questions for the witness, they will be propounded during their side's respective rounds. Do you understand?
I do.
The clock will stop if the witness needs to confer with counsel, when counsel for the witness is speaking, and when members or staff are speaking during the opposing side's round of questions. We will alternate back and forth until there are no more questions. Do you understand?
I do.
There's a court reporter taking down everything I say and everything you say to make a written record for the interview. For the record to be clear, please wait until the staffer questioning you finishes each question before you begin your answer, and the staffer will wait until you finish your response before proceeding to the next question. Further, to ensure that the court reporter can properly record this interview, please speak clearly, concisely, and slowly. Also, the court reporter cannot record nonverbal answers, such as nodding or shaking your head, so it's important that you answer each question with an audible, verbal response. Do you understand?
I do.
Exhibits may be entered into the record. Majority exhibits will be identified numerically. Minority exhibits will be identified alphabetically. Do you understand?
I'm sorry. Say that again, please.
Our exhibits will have numbers.
Oh,
the
theirs will
minorities
have-
will have letters.
Okay.
We want you to answer our questions in the most complete and truthful manner possible, so we will take our time. If you have any questions or do not fully understand the question, please let us know. We will attempt to clarify, add context to, or rephrase our questions. Do you understand?
I do.
If we ask about specific conversations or events in the past and you are unable to recall the exact words or details, you should testify to the substance of those conversations or events to the best of your recollection. If you recall only a part of the conversation or event, you should give us your best recollection of those events or parts of conversations that you do recall. Do you understand?
I do.
You are required by law to answer questions from Congress truthfully. This also applies to questions posed by congressional staff in this interview. Do you understand?
I do.
If at any time you knowingly make false statements, you could be subject to criminal prosecution. Do you understand?
I do.
This includes both knowingly providing false testimony, but also stating that you do not recall or remember something when in fact you do. Do you understand?
I do.
Furthermore, you cannot tell half-truths or exclude information necessary to make statements accurate. You are required to provide all information that would make your response truthful. A deliberate failure to disclose information can constitute a false statement. Do you understand?
I do.
Is there any reason you are unable to provide truthful testimony in today's interview?
No.
Please note that if you wish to assert a privilege over any statement today, that assertion must comply with the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Pursuant to that, Committee Rule 16C1 states, for the chair to consider assertions of privilege over testimony or statements, witnesses or entities must clearly state the specific privilege being asserted and the reason for the assertion on or before the scheduled date of testimony or appearance. Do you understand?
I do.
I'd like to introduce as Exhibit 1 a letter to you from Gary Lukowski, counsel to the President, informing you that President Trump has made the decision not to assert executive privilege with respect to your testimony, and that he will not assert immunity to preclude you from testifying.
I understand.
Ordinarily, we take a. Do you have this marked as one? I do. Okay. Ordinarily, we take a 5-minute break at the end of each hour of questioning, but if you need a longer break or a break before that, please let us know and we'll be happy to accommodate. However, to the extent that there is a pending question, we would ask that you finish answering the question before we take a break. Do you understand?
I do. Do you mind if I take a minute just to read the letter that I've just received?
Sure.
I'm happy to do that after you're done, or I can do that whenever it works for you.
We can go off the record right now and take some time. Yeah. Back on the record. My understanding, Mr. Bromwich, you have a question.
Yeah, well, just to confirm, we got this letter at 9:56 a.m. And the last line is, should you have any questions about the issues, please contact me. It would have been nice to get the letter beforehand. A couple of points. Ms. Tanden never had any intention of asserting executive privilege. She's not been asked to do so, and she would not have done so notwithstanding this letter. Second, on page 2 of the letter, it says in the last paragraph, for the same reasons underlying his decision on executive privilege, President Trump has determined that he will not assert immunity to preclude you from testifying. What does that mean?
I'm not in a position to speak for the White House.
Yeah, you can't speak for the White House.
The White House doesn't normally confer immunity, the Justice Department does, so I don't understand what that means.
I don't know either. We got the letter at 9:59, so.
Oh, glad we got it first. Okay, those are my only questions.
Thank you. We understand, Ms. Tanden, that you have transmitted testimony to the committee.
Mm-hmm.
We're happy to mark that as Exhibit 2 for the record.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions before we begin?
No.
Okay, my clock reads 10:17, and the majority's hour will begin now. Thank you again for being here, Ms. Tanden. Beginning with your educational, or your undergraduate degree, can you tell the committee what your educational background is?
I went to UCLA. Do you want me to start with college?
Yes.
I attended UCLA from 1988 to 1992. I got a Bachelor's of Arts degree from UCLA. I attended Yale Law School from 1993 to 1996 and received a Juris Doctor degree.
Thank you. Now I'd like to walk through your professional background. In 1992, you worked on Bill Clinton's presidential campaign. Is that correct?
I did. I worked in the California Clinton-Gore campaign.
And then you went on to work in the Clinton White House. Is that correct?
I did 4 years later.
What years were you in the Clinton White House?
I started in, I believe, March of 1997. And I left the Clinton White House in June. I believe it was June or July of 1999.
Were you a domestic policy advisor for First Lady Hillary Clinton?
I was a policy advisor for First Lady Hillary Clinton.
And Hillary Clinton is going to have several different titles. I will try to be respectful of when she attains those, but
I
as we
appreciate
walk
that.
through. In 2000, you worked for Ms. Clinton's Senate campaign, is that correct?
I did.
Then you worked as Senator Clinton's legislative director from 2003 to 2005, is that correct?
Yes.
You worked as an advisor to Senator Clinton's presidential campaign in 2008, is that correct?
I was her policy director, my title was not advisor, it was policy director for
Thank
her
you.
presidential campaign.
You then went to work in the Obama administration, is that correct?
Yes, I worked for then Senator Obama's presidential campaign and then worked in the Obama administration.
Did you work in the Department of Health and Human Services?
I did.
You then worked for Secretary Clinton's 2016 presidential run, is that correct?
You know, I actually don't believe I had any kind of paying job. I was on her transition, which was a voluntary position.
Thank you. Your next
In
government,
fact, I did not receive any remuneration from her campaign.
were you advising her campaign?
Yes, I mean I was an unofficial advisor, but I did not have a title for the campaign, nor did I have a salary.
Your next government position would be in the Biden administration, is that correct?
Yes.
And during this time frame that we've covered, 1992 to 2021, you also had stints of time working for or leading the Center for American Progress, is that correct?
Yes.
While working for the Center for American Progress, did you interact with a lot of Democratic politicians?
I interacted with a lot of politicians, the majority of whom were Democrats.
Do you know Representative Ro Khanna?
I have met Representative Ro Khanna. I don't recall if my first meeting with him was during my tenure at CAP, but may well have been.
Sure. Representative Khanna recently said in an interview, Democrats must be honest, Joe Biden should not have run for re-election. Do you think Joe Biden should have run for re-election in 2024?
I leave that to the historians. I mean, I know the president. I think the president, I worked with the president. He handled decisions very well. He directed me, like I leave it to the historians to say what the best course for the future is.
You don't have an opinion on whether Joe Biden should have run for re-election?
Let me interrupt for a second. We have some very specific topics that you told us you would be pursuing. Her subjective views on whether the president should have run again, not one of those. So I object to that as being not within the scope of the interview you described for us.
Are you directing your client not to answer the question?
I'm just advising you that you have strayed beyond what you said this interview would cover.
And as the committee made clear when we transmitted those topics to you, we were not bound by those topics. We have questions from Ms. Tanden. We think that those topics will largely cover the broad strokes of this interview, but we are not bound by it, that document that we sent you.
Okay, I just expected for you to adhere, at least at the beginning, to the topics that you described. If it happened to veer off afterwards from those, I can understand that. If her answers led you to ask follow-up questions, that might not have been within the bounds. But within the first 5 minutes, we're asking for subjective views as to whether somebody should have run for president, which strikes me as way off the beaten path.
Thank you. Are you directing your client not to answer
No,
the
she's
question?
perfectly capable of answering the question. I don't want to unduly prolong the interview by talking about issues that you didn't focus our attention on.
Do you think that Joe Biden should have run for re-election in 2024?
I thought the president had done a good job as president.
Do you think Democrats should be honest about whether they believe Joe Biden should have run for re-election in 2024?
Which Democrats?
Democrats writ large, do you think that they should be honest about their belief whether Joe Biden should have run for re-election in 2024?
I believe all people, Democrats including, should be honest about everything.
Do you think they have been?
I don't know.
Before turning to your time in the Biden White House, can you tell the committee when you first met Joe Biden?
I believe I first met Joe Biden. I was in a meeting. The first time I was in a meeting with Joe Biden was during a Democratic caucus lunch sometime in my tenure as legislative director for Senator Clinton. I believe there was a Thursday caucus lunch that I attended when the chief of staff couldn't. It could have been another meeting, but it was of the full Democratic caucus, and he was speaking about George Bush's foreign policy, and I believe that was the first time I met him.
Did you ever work for Joe Biden directly before joining the Biden White House?
In 2008, when I joined the presidential campaign, I joined the Obama-Biden presidential campaign when the vice president was when he was selected. My only engagement with him, like where we worked together, prior to my time as in his White House was during I was a kind of staffer on his debate prep.
You helped Joe Biden prepare for his debate against whom?
I mean, I was one of 15 people and probably the most junior person in the debate prep. But when he was doing the debate with Sarah Palin, I was on that debate prep camp. It was about our debate prep. There was eventually a camp, but there was 10 or 12 people on that prep.
How many meetings did you go to as part of that team?
If you recall.
I mean, it could have been anywhere between 5 and 10.
What was your job in those meetings?
To fact check domestic policy. So, I mean, I didn't interact with him more than a handful of times directly.
Were you a stand-in for anybody during those debates? In other words, did you play a role as Sarah Palin during those debate prep sessions?
No. Jennifer Granholm played Sarah Palin, and I might add, quite effectively.
Did you? So you were just watching and advising.
So I was watching, and essentially, if the vice back then, Senator Biden, if he made a mistake on domestic policy, I was supposed to alert people.
Did he make a lot of mistakes?
I mean, he was new to some of then Senator Obama's policies, so they weren't really mistakes. But there was occasion 2 or 3 times where I spoke directly to him about Senator Obama's policies, but he didn't make mistakes of fact or anything.
Did he strike you as a pretty capable debater?
I think he struck the American people as a capable debater after the debate.
But during the sessions, did you find him to be bright?
Did I find him to be bright?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you find him to be eloquent?
I mean, he wasn't eloquent in each of the debate preps. Sometimes he was better than others.
Was he good at conveying a message?
I thought he was. It wasn't really my job to determine if he was good at determining a message, delivering a message. You would have to ask others. My job in that situation was to decipher, really make sure he was stating the facts of the president's policies, and he did a good job of that.
Did you become personal friends with Joe Biden during this time?
No.
Prior to joining the White House, did you have a personal friendship with Joe Biden?
No.
You never had coffee with him one-on-one?
No. The only meeting I had with Vice President Biden in the White House. I was part of meetings where there was like 12 or 15 people. I think that happened 2 or 3 times. I at one point had I believe a 30-minute meeting with one of my staff members and then Vice President Biden on apprenticeships. And in my role as the Center for American Progress, we had a robust policy on apprenticeships and trying to ensure that there were more apprenticeships in the country. And he had a keen interest in that topic. And so I don't remember how the meeting developed, but we had a half-an-hour meeting in his West Wing office. And that was, besides like vice presidential Christmas parties where I got a picture with the vice president or events of 200 or 300 people, that's how I saw the vice president.
Did you ever develop a friendship with Jill Biden during this time?
No.
Did you ever develop a friendship with Jill Biden from this time while Joe Biden was vice president to the beginning of the Biden administration in 2021?
No.
Did you ever develop a friendship with Beau Biden?
So I went to law school with Beau Biden. He was in, oh, Beau
Hunter
Biden.
Biden.
Oh, my mistake. No, my mistake, sorry. I don't believe I'd ever met Beau Biden.
Did you ever develop a friendship with Hunter Biden?
Hunter Biden was in my class at Yale Law School. I don't remember seeing or meeting Hunter Biden in my time at Yale Law School. I only saw Hunter Biden for I think really perhaps the first time at social events at the White House.
And when you say social events at the White House, do you mean during the Obama-Biden administration?
Oh, I'm sorry, during the Biden-Harris administration.
Okay, so you did not really have a relationship with Hunter Biden prior to joining the White House, at the Biden White House?
No, I mean, when I saw Hunter Biden at the White House, he remembered that we were at Yale together. I don't know if you remembered we were in the same class, but he remembered that we were at Yale together. But I genuinely do not remember meeting Hunter at Yale Law School.
Did you ever develop a friendship with James Biden, the president's brother?
I don't believe I've ever met James Biden.
Did you ever develop a close relationship with Frank Biden, the president's other brother?
I don't think I even know what Frank Biden looks like. I don't believe I've ever met Frank Biden.
And did you ever develop?
In fact, I know I've never met Frank Biden.
Thank you. Did you ever develop a friendship with Valerie Biden Owens, the president's sister?
I never developed a friendship with Valerie Biden. I have seen her at social events at the White House, and that is the extent of our relationship.
Thank you. When was the last time you spoke with Joe Biden?
I had a telephone call with President Biden, former President Biden, like 2 months ago. I can get you the date if you want me to. I
Sure.
was traveling in Poland.
You were traveling.
I was traveling in Poland, so
You called him.
no, he called me.
He called you. What did you talk about?
We talked about the state of America. We talked about, actions of the Trump administration. We talked about how institutions seem to be targeted. Harvard was under attack, the media. We talked about, I think he asked me how my kids were doing. That was about it.
Was anyone else on the call?
Not that I know of.
Do you know if anyone else was in the room with President Biden while he was having that call?
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to dive into your various positions in the Biden White House in more detail. But right now, I just want to lay it out for the record what I believe are your 3 main positions in the Biden White House. First, you served as senior advisor to the president beginning in May of 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
Then, in October of 2021, you retained your title as senior advisor, but you also became the staff secretary. Is that correct?
Yes.
You held this position until May of 2023. Is that correct?
Yes.
In May of 2023, you became the director of the Domestic Policy Council. Is that correct?
Yes. It was the last day of May.
Thank you. The DPC is part of the larger Office of the President, right?
Yes.
And you served in that position until the end of the Biden administration in this year, 2025, correct?
Yes. My last day was January 17th.
Thank you. You are now, once again, leading the Center for American Progress, correct?
I am. I am Chief Executive Officer.
Before we dive into more detail about those
Bless you.
positions,
Listen tight.
before we dive into more detail about those positions and what you were doing in those positions, I think it would be helpful to run through a few people who might be coming up in the course of this interview. Who is Ron Klain?
Ron Klain was Chief of Staff on the first roughly 2 years of the administration, the Biden administration.
How do you know Mr. Klain?
I met Ron Klain, I believe, in debate prep in 2008. He was leading the debate prep. He, when I served in the White House on the Office of Health Reform, I occasionally saw him in the hallways. He always said hello.
What time period are you talking about?
Oh,
Just for clarity.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. And this would be 2009 to 2010. At some point, he became a board member of the Center for American Progress Action Fund. Within a few years of that period or around that period, I did not have anything to do with his selection. I believe John Podesta did. So I knew him in that capacity. He was chair of the Cap Action, or not chair. He was a board member for Cap Action, and that was how I know him.
What is CAP Action?
Cap Action, so Center for American Progress Action Fund is 501c4. It's an advocacy organization.
Did you become friends with Mr. Klain after his time in the after the Obama administration?
Well, I would characterize my relationship with Ron as one in which we were definitely friendly. We'd work together at Cap Action, but I'd never gone out for a meal in this period. I never
political friend,
a
not a
political
social friend.
Yeah, I never went to dinner with him or I've never been to his house. He's never been to my house. So yes, we would be political friends, I guess.
Thank you. As chief of staff, his office during the Biden administration would have been right next to the Oval Office. Is that correct?
No, it is not correct. The chief of staff's office is 4 or 5 offices down from the Oval Office.
Okay, thank you. Who is Bruce Reed?
Relative to what his experience was in the Biden administration,
Yes.
he's the former deputy chief of staff for policy, or I don't know if his title was deputy chief of staff. I don't know if for policy was in there, but he handled a lot of policy.
When did you first meet Mr. Reed?
I met Bruce Reed in 1999. No, I'm sorry. I met Bruce Reed in 1997. He was chair of the Domestic Policy Council when I was selected to become associate director for domestic policy, although I did not interview with him.
You did not interview with him.
No.
Are you friends with Mr. Reed?
I mean, in a similar vein, I've known Bruce Reed for many years. We've worked together, and obviously he was my boss's boss's boss in the Clinton White House, and I've in various campaigns I've gotten advice from him on various topics, but I don't believe we've ever had more than coffee once or twice in 25 years. Or
Um,
27, how many years are we talking?
20,
8 years.
28 years.
Oh my God, I'm
Don't
so
ask
old.
me to do math on the record,
Yeah.
please. Do you know where Mr. Reed sat in the West Wing?
Yes, he had two different offices. So during the period of time that Ron Klain was chief of staff, Bruce had an office. I mean, I guess how would I describe this? There's the Oval Office. I guess I'll just
Do
speak
you
it
want her to
out.
draw a chart? Would that be helpful? A diagram?
I could kind of broadly do it if you'd like.
If we can stick to words, I think
Okay.
that would be
Okay.
best.
Okay.
Okay.
I appreciate it though.
I'll just describe this.
Thank you.
There's the Oval Office. If you are facing the Resolute desk from the hallway, and you go, the next immediate office to the Oval Office is a private office, and then the next immediate room, I should say, is a dining room. And then the next immediate office was, for many years, Mike Donnellan's office. And then the next immediate office to that was Steve Richetti's office. And then the next immediate office to that was Ron Klain's office, which was a corner office. The chief of staff's office, I believe, has always been that office. Across from Mike Donnellan's office, both deputy chiefs of staff sat, so on the other side of the hallway. So Bruce Reed's office was across the way. So his office was right next to the Roosevelt room. And then, so that is the answer to your question.
Thank you.
He had a second office, I should say.
Oh, thank you.
My apologies. After Mike Donnellan left the White House, Bruce Reed took his office.
Understood. Thank you. Do you know if Bruce Reed previously worked for Joe Biden prior to joining the Biden White House?
I believe he was his chief of staff. I don't remember when, though. It was 1 or 2 years in the Obama administration.
Can you estimate, well, you just did, can you estimate how long he served with President Biden prior to joining the Biden White House?
I believe it was no more than 2 years, but I couldn't accurately tell you.
Thank you. You made mention of Mike Donnellan. Who is Mike Donnellan?
Mike Donnellan was a senior advisor to the president.
And his office was quite close to the Oval, as you just described. Is that correct?
I mean, it is 3 rooms down, but it is the closest office.
Do you know if Mike Donnellan worked for Joe Biden prior to joining the Biden White House?
I do. You worked with him, I take it, for decades.
When was the last time you spoke with Mr. Donnellan?
I believe that Mike Donnellan called me. I can genuinely not remember if it was a text or a call, but I did a TV appearance sometime in early February, and he either called or texted "good job," which I was moderately surprised by, since I didn't expect him to be watching cable television.
Are you friends with Mr. Donnellan?
I mean, I didn't know. I never met Mike Donnellan until the Biden White House, and I had a cordial and positive relationship with Mike Donnellan, but I had not ever had a private meal with Mike Donnellan or been to Mike Donnellan's house or even gone out for a coffee with Mike Donnellan.
When was the last time you spoke with Bruce Reed?
I believe maybe a month or so ago. We can get dates and things like that. But a month or so ago, I've spoken to Bruce just 2 times, I think, since the White House. He came over to CAP soon after I started, and we, talked about, ideas for progressives, and then I talked to him on the phone a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, where I think we were talking about a possible event for the president.
And thank you. And who is Steve Ricchetti?
Steve Ricchetti was counselor to the president.
When did you first meet Mr. Ricchetti?
I think I met Steve Ricchetti in the Clinton White House. Now, I was, several levels down from Steve Ricchetti, so I believe I just saw him in the hallway at some point and said hello. But I don't, I don't know that he actually remembers meeting me, but yeah, but that's how I know him.
And Mr. Ricchetti's office, as you described, was about 4 or 5 offices down from the Oval Office. Is that correct?
It's 4 or 5 rooms down from
Okay.
the Oval Office.
Thank you. And do you know if Mr. Ricchetti previously worked for Joe Biden prior to joining the Biden White House?
Yes, I also believe he was chief of staff for Joe Biden, but I don't remember. It was I cannot remember if it was at the end of the first term or beginning of the second term of President Obama's tenure, but
Okay.
somewhere in there.
And when was the last time you spoke with Mr. Ricchetti?
Sometime in, over 2 months ago, I believe Steve Ricchetti called me. He was just checking in to see how things are going. And yes, we talked, I think we've spoken once since the administration has ended, maybe twice.
What's the functional difference between counselor to the president and senior advisor to the president? Like, is one an assistant to the president, or is one a deputy, or is one a special? Do you know?
They're all assistants to the president.
Okay.
I cannot tell you what the difference between a counselor and a senior advisor to the president is.
I can't either, so I appreciate it.
No, I could not discern. Both were a counselor or senior advisor they all tended to be assistants to the president, as far as I could tell.
Just to be clear, when you have spoken or texted with Bruce Reed, Mike Donilon, Steve Ricchetti, you didn't talk about this interview with
I
them.
did not, no.
Thank you. Did you ever talk during those last conversations? Did you ever speak about President Biden's mental or physical capacities?
I think in my conversation with Steve Ricchetti, and I should definitely try to find the date. This was I think it was in the first month of my tenure cap, so it must have been over 3 months ago. He referenced that there were books coming out about the president, and some degree of outrage about the books. But we didn't talk about the underlying capacity or incapacity of President Biden. That was the extent of the discussion.
But did you get the impression that the outrage was because of questions about President Biden's mental or physical decline?
The outrage, was that people were writing that the president was incapacitated. And this is my impression of what was happening, and that was outrageous, since he believed it was vociferously untrue.
Thank you. It's my understanding that throughout the time of the Biden administration, people affiliated with the Clinton camp were not fully embraced by longtime Biden people who surrounded the president. Do you agree with that?
Can you define what you mean by Clinton camp?
Sure. People who had for a long time worked for or been affiliated with Secretary Clinton is how I would define the Clinton camp.
Okay, go ahead and ask your question again, sorry.
It's my understanding that throughout the Biden administration, people who had been affiliated with the Clinton camp or a part of the Clinton camp were not fully embraced by longtime Biden people. Do you agree with that?
Well, I can only tell you my experience. I started off as senior advisor. I became staff secretary, and then I moved to domestic policy advisor, a position that I thought was very suited for my skills. So I had not met Joe Biden. I mean, I had not worked closely with Joe Biden. I'd not hung out with Joe Biden. I'd never just socialized with Joe Biden. And I was a person who was elevated to that role of domestic policy advisor. So my experience does not seem to comport with that experience. So I can only tell you my experience. And I would also note Jake Sullivan was a national security advisor who had worked closely with Secretary Clinton for many years.
When you started as senior advisor, where was your desk in the West Wing?
Well, at first, for a few weeks before my office was my permanent office, a senior advisor was set up. I was in a hallway of OEOB on the first floor. Would you like me to go through my offices, or?
That'd be great.
Then
High entertainment value.
Then, as senior advisor, I had I had a corner office in the OEOB on the first floor. It was the largest office I have ever had in my professional career. Then, as staff secretary, I moved to the the ground floor of the West Wing. And then as domestic policy chair, I moved to the second floor of the West Wing. Also, quite a nice corner office. Not as large.
Mike Donnellan and you shared a title as senior advisor to the president, right?
You did. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, he did.
Mike Donnellan, as you previously described, had an office in the West Wing, correct?
Yes.
You did not, when you first began, correct?
I did not, but I would also say I started in May, and the offices seemed to be assigned by then.
Sure. There is reporting from Alex Thompson, Jake Tapper, and others that Mike Donnellan, Steve Ricchetti, Bruce Reed made up a particularly close group of advisors to Joe Biden. Do you agree with that reporting?
I mean, they were among his close advisors.
Do you think that you were as close to the president when you first began as Mr. Donnellan, for example?
No. When I first began, was I as close to the president as the person who he'd worked with for 40 years when I had not worked with him before? No.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is when the Biden administration began, certainly, the people who had been with the president, with President Biden for a long time were his closest advisors, setting aside titles and things like that.
Well, I mean, in fairness, I don't think he had worked that closely with Brian Deese, who was his NEC director, and I think my impression was the president relied on Brian Deese a lot.
And NEC is the National Economic
I'm sorry,
Council.
the National Economic Council. So that was my impression. Obviously, a president has new staff around him, and I saw that the president spent a lot of time with Brian. He had not known Jen O'Malley Dillon that long, as far as I understood. I think that she had joined the campaign a year or so out, so I didn't have the impression that they had a long-standing relationship, and she was deputy chief of staff.
Do you think that Brian Deese was as trusted by the president as Mike Donnellan?
You're asking her to speculate on somebody's mental state.
Just asking her opinion.
Was he as close to? I don't know. I would say he was probably closer to Mike Donnellan, but if the question is, did the president rely on for serious advice and counsel to people who he didn't know until recently, the answer is yes.
Have you read Original Sin by Alex Thompson and Jake Tapper?
I have not.
Have you ever spoken with Jake Tapper or Alex Thompson?
I have. I did not speak to Alex Thompson in any relationship to this book. I met with Alex Thompson sometime in the first 2 years of the administration, and he asked me for coffee, and we got coffee, and I was not a source for him on anything. Jake Tapper, after the election, asked to meet to get a drink. I did not know he was writing a book when I agreed to get a drink. He, in the course of the drinks, announced or said to me that he was writing a book. I believe I noted that I might have rethought this drinks issue since we'd never gotten drinks before. If I had known he was writing a book, I told him I was not a source. I was not planning to be a source for his book.
What were you talking about during those drinks?
Well, it started off with a discussion of I did his show multiple times. Again, I've never socialized with Jake Tapper. This is my first actual social experience with him. But my daughter had met him. I'd done a show once, and my daughter had met him, and he remembered that, and he asked about my daughter. So we talked about how she went to Wellesley. He asked about my kids and family. We talked. I asked him about CNN, views of CNN, and at some point. Not immediately, but at some point in the conversation, he told me he was writing a book. He did not tell me the title. I told him that I was not interested in being a source for his book. He, kind of followed up a few times. I suggested there are other people who were, he had sort of described it as, not again, Original Sin, but like a campaign book, a book that was really about the campaign. I told him I was very distant from the campaign. I was really separated from the campaign. If he wanted to talk about that, he could talk to the president's close advisors, maybe call some of the pollsters. That would be a strategy.
And sorry, you said he followed up a few times. I just want to make clear, he followed up, you're saying he followed up in the course of that conversation?
Yes, and then I never spoke to him again, and I never spoke to Alex Thompson. I never spoke to him again about, for the book.
Did he make clear that that part of the subject of that book was going to be an examination or an evaluation of President Biden's decision to run for re-election in 2024?
I believe he made clear, or I believe what he said in that at the time was that he was writing a book about the decision. And like the whole facts about the decision. It was not clear to me the book was about the president's capacity. It was more about, as I remember this, it was more about like what happened. And I also, I said very clearly, like, I wasn't really involved in the campaign, and I thought it was going to be, that's why he certainly didn't tell me what the title of the book was, although I'm sure he may have known it or something.
Did you all discuss President Biden's capacity?
No.
You said that you made some suggestions to him about other people he could talk to.
What I said to him was, if you're interested in, I didn't know anything about what happened here, or like, I wasn't super
In the
involved in these
campaign.
decisions in the campaign. If you want to, like, talk to other people, you should talk to people involved in that. You should talk to the senior advisors, the campaign, the pollsters. Those people would know.
Did you recommend that he talk to Mike Donald?
I may have, I don't know.
Same
I
with-
don't remember, but like we may well have said Mike, Anita Dunn,
Steve Ricchetti,
Steve Ricchetti. I may well have said that. I don't remember doing it, but I may well have.
Bruce Reed, same thing.
I don't know if I said Bruce Reed, but may well have.
And what was the context in which you made those recommendations? Was it to discuss the campaign, not to discuss the president's capacity? What was it?
It was, I was saying, as my understanding in my conversation with him, is he was writing a book about the campaign and the president's decision to withdraw, something that I was very far removed from. And I said the people who would know those issues were these people. And then he asked some questions about the campaign, and I said, those, you know, like, and the people who were like around the president as he was deciding what was going on in those hours or whatever. And I was like, you should talk to the campaign, maybe the pollsters, other people. I was really trying to say, first of all, I'm not interested in being a source for this book. Second of all, I do not believe I am any source for this book. Second of all, I was basically saying, you know, like, I'm not a person who can give you any, like, interesting information anyway. You should go to other people.
Have you been a source for any other book?
Not that I know of.
Where did you meet Mr. Capper for drinks?
Oh my God, what is it called? I can't remember the name. I hope this doesn't mean anyone thinks I don't have capacity. It's the restaurant right next to Comet. Ping Pong.
Okay,
We can look it up. I know the block
I'm
you're
so sorry,
talking about.
I can't remember.
it's okay.
We should have looked that up yesterday.
In Mr. Capper's book and Mr. Thompson's book, they refer to a close group of advisors as the Politburo, which they attribute to other people in the White House using that term. Had you ever heard that term before?
I had never heard that term before. I saw it in the press.
Did you ever hear any kind of shorthand to refer to the group of advisors that included Mike Donnellan, Steve Ricchetti, Bruce Reed, maybe others?
I believe that soon after Jeff Zients became chief of staff, there was an article in Axios or Politico that described a quintet. That quintet included Jenna Millie Dillon, Bruce Reed, Steve Ricchetti, Mike Donnellan, and Anita Dunn. So it was described as the quintet and Jeff
Zients.
Zients.
Understood. The quintet did not include you.
No. It did not include me. Nor did it include Lael Brainerd, who was the National Economic Council chair.
Now, I want to get into a little bit more about your entry into the Biden White House and the job that you held. Joe Biden announced in November of 2020 that he would nominate you to lead the Office of Management and Budget. Is that correct?
Yes,
OMB is part of the Executive Office of the President. Is that correct?
it is.
Did you work on the Biden 2020 campaign?
No.
Did you work on Joe Biden's presidential transition in either 2020 or 2021?
No.
Okay. When did you begin discussions to join the Biden administration?
At some point in the fall, I spoke to Ron Klain, or Ron Klain spoke to me, and I don't remember the date, but it was in the fall. He suggested, I believe it was in the fall. He, we in the course of a conversation, he thought he may become chief of staff if the president was elected, and if he did, he wanted to know if I'd be interested in serving.
Sorry. Sir, would you mind announcing yourself for the record?
Sure, I'm Robert Garcia. I'm the new ranking member of Oversight.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Nice to see you.
Besides Ron Klain, did you have any other discussions with other people about you joining the Biden White House potentially?
In the week or so before the election, I believe Jeff Science reached out to say that they were vetting people who could be in office. It was not about a particular role. I don't believe it was for. I was at that point notified it could be OMB, but he said that they were reaching out to gather information about people if the president won. That was that conversation.
Going back to your conversation with Ron Klain, did you get the impression that he was pushing your name forward in the Biden campaign and later the Biden transition team for you to hold a position in a potential Biden White House?
I did not get the impression he was putting my name forward for anything. I think he was just broadly asking if I would be interested in serving. I did not get the impression, nor did I get the impression from anyone else my name was part of, like, out there for anything.
When did it start to become more crystallized that they had you in mind, that the Biden transition or the Biden campaign had you in mind to lead OMB?
Well, I believe it was after the election. I was talking to a vetting attorney and handing information to them, and I was like, can we be a little bit more specific about the role? And they said to me multiple times, we are going to gather this information and you could be dropped from selection at any point. So I believe it was either the first time, I would have to go look at my notes, or my emails, but I think it was immediately after the election or right before the election, where the first, if it was some kind of formal, I had a sense it was OMB
Did you speak with Joe Biden ever about joining his administration?
He interviewed me eventually.
When was that?
I believe it was right before Thanksgiving. I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday of Thanksgiving. I had an hour-long interview. Actually, it was scheduled for half an hour. It went for 45, 50 minutes. It was the interview. Yeah, so he interviewed me for the job.
Who else was in that interview?
So it was a Zoom because this was taking place during COVID. In the beginning of the interview, before the president got on, Jeff Science was there. I think he was chair of the transition, and then, again, I cannot remember who's the deputy AG.
At that time?
Oh, no.
Lisa Monaco?
Lisa Monaco. Again, my apologies for the senior moment. Lisa Monaco was in there, was in the Zoom we had a 2 or 3 minute discussion. And then I believe it was just the president and I in the Zoom, but I don't know. Maybe they went off camera. I just was hyper focused on him. And he was the only person on screen at that point. So they could have, my memory is not clear whether they were on Zoom and muted and listening or not.
Had you met Lisa Monaco before?
I'm sure I'd seen her at something before, socially, but I don't know that I'd ever been in a meeting with her.
She's not a friend of yours?
No, she's on the transition, I think. I think she was had a role on the transition. That was my impression.
Did you ever speak with Bruce Reed about potentially joining the Biden administration?
No. In fact, Bruce Reed's name was up for OMB in the press. So I did not speak with him about it.
Did you ever speak with Mike Donilon about joining the
No,
Biden administration?
at that point, I don't think I knew Mike Donilon.
And did you ever speak with Steve Ricchetti about potentially joining the Biden White House?
I should say, I was on a Zoom with Mike Donilon in August. It was one of those Zooms where the campaign asked...
August of 2020.
Yes, August of 2020. I was in a Zoom with, maybe 20 or 25 people. where he was just talking about the state of the campaign. And I think that was the only time I'd been with him prior to the administration.
During your interview with Joe Biden, did he recognize you from previously having met you?
Yes.
Did he speak clearly?
Yes.
Did he meander in his thoughts? I ask only because you said the meeting was slotted for 30 minutes and it went quite a bit longer. So was he being particularly long-winded?
No, I thought he was being particularly thorough. I mean, he asked me my views on a whole range of issues related to Office of Management budget. He asked me about, my views on relative spending of investments in non-discretionary spending versus defense spending. Non-defense discretionary spending versus defense spending. He asked me about my experiences. It was an on-point interview. He, probably told a story at some point, but which I don't recall at this point, but it was related to his experience. He was at one point on the budget committee. He did not seem to enjoy his tenure on the budget committee, which was a source of engagement in the interview.
The director of OMB is a Senate confirmed position, correct?
It is.
You withdrew yourself from consideration leading OMB in early 2021, is that correct?
Yes, apparently there was some concern about my tweets, which is a standard we no longer seem to apply.
You withdrew yourself from consideration.
I did.
After Senator Manchin announced he would not vote in favor of your confirmation, correct?
Yes, some weeks after that, yes.
And you alluded to your tweeting. Is that what you attributed to Senator Manchin not being in favor of your confirmation?
If you know.
I think he referenced it himself in his remarks.
Okay, thank you.
Did anyone instruct you to withdraw?
No.
You withdrew on your own?
I mean, I engaged with folks that I was going to withdraw.
Who are those folks?
I talked to Ron Klain. I think I spoke to Anita Dunn.
Did you speak to President Biden regarding your withdrawal?
I did not.
In May of 2021, President Biden made you senior advisor to the president, correct?
He did.
Did the elevation of you to senior advisor coincide with your withdrawal from the the nomination process for leading OMB?
What do you mean?
When it became clear that you would not be confirmed to lead OMB, was it immediate that you came to know that you would be raised to senior advisor?
No.
When did you learn that you would be made senior advisor?
I mean, I think I knew 10 days before I was named senior advisor. I mean, there were weeks, if not a month or 2 months, where I was not sure I would work in the administration.
So for the timeline, how long after you withdrew your nomination were you first talked to about a senior advisor position?
About that role, I believe 2 weeks before.
Were there any other roles up for discussion in that interim?
I mean, there was like a whole month where I really didn't talk to anybody. I mean, I had very cursory conversations. And then there was another month or so where there were some discussions. I mean, it was sort of like there would be a senior advisor-ish role, but what I was doing was up for debate. But there was nothing confirmed with the role until about a week and a half before. And I wasn't, I was not positive I was going into the administration until really 10 days, 2 weeks before.
Did you get the impression that that you had an ally in the White House pushing for you to get a role in the administration?
I mean, not really. I mean, Ron, I was talking to Ron about a role, but I didn't get a sense that someone else was pushing, I didn't get any,
Sure.
I probably felt like I could have had more allies at that point.
You entered as senior advisor, and I think your area of specialty was healthcare policy in the U.S. Digital Service. Is that right? Did you have a designated staff in that role?
I mean, I had a staff person, I had an assistant,
Who was that?
Richard Figueroa.
Had you,
Can we take a break?
I just have to go to the
we're
bathroom.
like 3
Okay,
minutes.
okay, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Sorry to announce it.
Who is Richard Figueroa?
Richard Figueroa was my assistant. He had worked at the Center for American Progress. I was looking for an assistant. He became my assistant.
And how long had you known him prior to him becoming your designated staff as senior advisor?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't really know that I knew him. I think I seen him a little bit in CAP, as a CEO, and I think he worked in the Ledge Affairs shop, but people attested that he was good in his role.
And how would you describe your job duties as senior advisor?
So I had a variety of responsibilities. The Supreme Court, when I first entered the role, there was a lot of concern that the Supreme Court would strike down the ACA. So I sort of led a red team effort to say what our response would be on the ACA. Once the Supreme Court decided, the Affordable Care Act, once the Supreme Court decided not to overturn the ACA, I started helping on outreach and outreach and some strategy around the Build Back Better legislation.
And this will be my last question, then we can take a break.
Thanks.
How often would you see President Biden in this role as senior advisor?
I saw the president a few times. I saw the president probably, in the space of those several months, I probably saw him once a month.
What's the latest? Sorry, one more. What is the latest you ever met with the president during this time while you were senior advisor prior to you becoming staff secretary?
What do you mean the latest?
The latest in the day.
I don't really remember. It might have been 6, 7. I don't, but I'm genuinely just.
You don't,
I mean,
you don't recall.
I don't remember. I mean, I was part of social. I was part of social events with him. With small groups. Someone was leaving or something was happening. That happened at 6 or 7 at night.
Okay. I think we can go off the record right now.
I want to first thank you for agreeing to participate in today's interview voluntarily. Today marks the first transcribed interview of the 119th Congress conducted by Chairman Comer in the Oversight Committee. At the beginning of the first hour, the minority requested an opportunity to memorialize the contours of these interviews and depositions on the record and to ensure that the minority has equal access to materials produced herefor. The majority refused this basic request. Prior to today's interview, conversations were had between majority and minority staff regarding equal access to video footage and transcripts. In particular, staff agreed in writing that the minority will have equal access to the full video footage of transcribed interviews and depositions, and the majority will share that footage at the time they receive it. Now, secondly, Ms. Tanden, I understand that you brought a statement here today that you did not read during the first hour with my majority colleagues. I would like to give you an opportunity to read that statement to the record.
Thank you so much. I am Neera Tanden. I am here in response to the request made by Chairman Comer in his letter to me dated May 22nd that I participate in this transcribed interview. As the committee staff knows, my counsel and I have been willing to voluntarily cooperate with this committee from this time I received the letter. I am here to answer your questions about my service in the Biden administration. My cooperation should not be taken to mean that I think the committee's investigation is a worthy subject of oversight. I do not believe it is. Indeed, millions of Americans wonder why this committee has conducted no oversight of the current administration on topics far more worthy of the committee's time and attention than this one. Those topics include the sale of a Qatari jet to the White House for the private use of President Trump after he leaves office, universities and prominent law firms that are subject to attack, President Trump's meme coin and cryptocurrency adventures, and the excesses of ICE officers who are wearing masks as they detain, sometimes with the use of force, people lawfully in the United States. All of those seem subject to important subjects for oversight. In this country, at this time, there is truly a need for genuine oversight of the executive branch and its overreach, but instead this committee is devoting its resources to the last administration instead of the current one. Let me discuss my service in the White House. In May 2021, President Biden named me as senior advisor with a portfolio that included healthcare issues, among others. In October 2021, I was named as staff secretary and senior advisor. As staff secretary, I was responsible for handling the flow of documents to and from the president. I was also authorized to direct that Autopen signatures be affixed to certain categories of documents which the president had approved. We had a system for authorizing the use of the Autopen that I inherited from prior administrations. We employed that system throughout my tenure as staff secretary. In May 2023, I was named head of the President's Domestic Policy Council. From that point forward, I no longer served in the role of staff secretary. I was no longer responsible for the overall flow of documents to and from the president, and I no longer had any responsibilities in connection with the use of the Autopen. As head of the Domestic Policy Council, I had periodic discussions with the president on a range of domestic policy issues. I would note that much of the public discussion on the subject matter of this hearing has conflated two very different issues. First, the president's age, and second, whether the president was in command as president. Whether President Biden was in command as president. I had no experience in the White House that would provide me any reason to question his command as president. He was in charge. I am prepared to answer your questions on this topic, on the topics you provided that are within the scope of this inquiry. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tanden. With that, we'll go off the record.
We'll go on the record.
Before Jake starts questioning, I just want to clarify the record as to what happened at the beginning of the last hour. Minority Counsel and Majority Counsel had an off-the-record conversation where Minority Counsel asked if we would validate on the record what we had already agreed to in writing previously regarding sharing of information. Minority Counsel said that Majority Counsel refused to do that. That is not true. Majority Counsel said that Minority Counsel could ask Majority Counsel to do that at the top of the second hour, and that question was never raised. The witness was in the room for that conversation. Do you agree with that?
I mean, I gotta honestly,
we don't want to be in the middle of this.
I gotta honestly tell you, I wasn't really tracking what was going on there. So I can't really attest to. I was very much more focused on what you were about to ask me.
Jake can ask questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Tanden. Turning back to your time as senior advisor to the president, do you know who Anthony Bernal is?
Yes.
Who is he?
Anthony Bernal was, I believe his title was senior advisor to the First Lady.
Was it your understanding that he had had roles in Jill Biden's office for a long time?
I understood him to have worked with the First Lady for a very long time.
Did you know Mr. Bernal previous to you coming to the Biden White House?
I believe I met Anthony Bernal in the Clinton administration because I believe he had a role working for then Second Lady Tipper Gore. And so I had, seen him at events. We didn't have, we weren't friends or had any kind of social relationship.
But did you understand him to be close with the First Lady?
I did. I think I understood that. I think people said something to that nature soon after I got there, or like in the summer or something. But I didn't really totally understand the role as soon as when I first arrived.
What did people say?
Then Anthony was close to the First Lady.
Who was saying that? Do you know?
I really don't remember.
When was the last time you spoke with Mr. Bernal?
I think the last time I spoke to Anthony Bernal was early January 2025.
What'd you talk about?
It was related to something about LGBTQ issues.
Was that prior to the end of the Biden administration?
Yes, it was early January 2025. I mean, it wasn't a very long discussion.
Did you get the impression that Mr. Bernal advised Dr. Biden about policy issues?
I couldn't. He had taken an interest in LGBTQ issues, and I don't really recall whether he raised the First Lady's name at all. I don't know that he did in that conversation.
Did you, as senior advisor, did you interact with the First Lady's office in that role?
When I was senior advisor in the beginning of the administration?
Yes, ma'am.
Not really. I mean, I think when I first got it to the White House, I made the rounds and met with various people, and in the course of that, I met with sort of department heads, and I met with Jalissa Reneso, who I think was the chief of staff, and at one point I had a brief meeting with Anthony, but I never met with the First Lady.
What was your meeting with Mr. Bernal like?
It was like a little bit like a get to know you. I think he came over to my office, said, "Welcome." I don't remember it being particularly substantive. I'm trying to recollect this meeting. Yeah, I mean, I think he was just saying greetings.
You don't recall the specifics?
Yeah, I don't really recall the specifics of the meeting.
Did you ever hear during the entirety of your time in the White House, did you ever hear people express frustration or annoyance or fear about Mr. Bernal?
I didn't. I mean, I did not hear anyone express fear of Mr. Bernal. Like I didn't. That was not like something in the water cooler with me. I didn't really work closely with Anthony Bernal. I was probably in a sort of perhaps 2 or 3, 4, 5 meetings in my tenure with him. He was in our 8:40 meeting every morning.
I'm sorry, what 8:40 meeting?
There's a senior staff 8:40 meeting every day with 25 department heads at the White House.
And Mr. Bernal would be in those meetings?
Yes.
Okay. Do you...
I mean, and that didn't seem unusual to me because I'd worked in the Clinton White House and I understand the Obama White House. They had a similar practice.
Do you know who Annie Tomasini is?
I do.
Who is she?
Annie Tomasini was director of Outer Oval Operations. So Outer Oval Operations oversees the Oval Office itself.
What can you provide a little bit more detail about what that means?
It means like responsible for people coming in and out of the Oval Office, and the president's giving the president information. And I worked with her, or my office and her office worked very closely together when I was staff secretary. She, because we basically were responsible for the information flow, and the information flow had to go through Oval Office operations. So that's how our offices work together.
Did you know Ms. Tomasini previously?
I did not.
When was the last time you spoke with Ms. Thomasini?
A few months ago, we were talking about getting a drink together, and we did not, like, nothing. We did not get together.
So, as director of outer oval operations, would you go to Ms. Thomasini on the occasions that you wanted to or needed to brief the president?
Well, I think that was a combination of times when people wanted to go and brief the president, or there was an issue. I mean, you could work, like, that could work through the chief of staff's office, it could work through Annie Tomasini. I mean, it could work through the chief of staff, it could work through Annie Tomasini, it could work through, when she was director of outer operations, it could work through Jen O'Malley Dillon. Jen O'Malley Dillon oversaw the schedule, so, like, for you, people would often go to her.
Who else had that kind of gatekeeping role to President Biden?
Anybody other than those you've mentioned?
I mean, gatekeeping, like, yeah.
If you wanted to go talk to the president, well, I'll ask. If you wanted to go talk to the president, could you just walk into the Oval Office and talk to the president?
I could not. I did not.
Okay. So you had to go through somebody to talk
Yeah, so, but for most of my meetings, I think that was organized by Jeff
to Jeff.
Zients, the chief of staff.
What about the first 2 years?
I would have been, Ron designated meetings and manifests and like, he would say this needs to happen, and like this meeting needs to happen, and then like Annie would organize the meeting, or like that would get scheduled. So it was kind of like a between Ron Klain, Jen O'Malley Dillon, and Annie Tomasini. But I'm broadly aware that Steve Ricchetti could have like organized meetings. I think for members of Congress, he often did that.
Would you ever go through Mr. Ricchetti to get a meeting with the president?
I didn't go through Mr. Ricchetti ever.
Who had Oval walk-in privileges?
I don't know.
You didn't.
I did not have Oval office walking privilege.
If you had to guess, do you think Mr. Donilon had Oval walking?
You're asking her to guess. She doesn't want to guess.
Okay. Well, you worked in the White House. Did you get the impression that Mr. Donilon had walk-in privileges?
I didn't really have the impression that people had walk-in privileges, honestly. Like, I think that there wasn't any discourse of that in law. I mean, the president, relied on Mike Donilon for advice and counsel, but I didn't have any sense of walk-in privileges.
In the verbal map that you sketched for us about where people sat, did you get the impression that those people it was easier for those people to get a meeting with the president than people who didn't sit in the close vicinity of the Oval Office?
So I have never been at this level in the White House, but it has been my experience that it has been my general perception in every White House that I have served in, that the people who are in the first floor with closest proximity to the president generally meet with the president the most. That has been my experience. That was my experience, my perception for President Obama and President Clinton.
Do you think those people are the most trusted people in the administration by the president?
If you know.
I mean, I don't know. Probably.
I mean, if they're getting a lot of meetings, they're probably really trusted, right?
Probably.
Did you have?
But there were, I just want to say, the president met with Jake Sullivan regularly as national security advisor, a person who had not, worked with him before, but had not served with him for decades. And he worked close. My impression was that he had many meetings with Brian Deese, who I don't know that he knew well before the term. But Brian had served in the Obama administration, but I don't know that. I wasn't my impression that he had known the vice president very well when he was president.
Did you have?
And when he was vice president to President Obama.
Did you have residence privileges?
I did not.
Do you know who did?
I do not.
Do you know if Anthony Bernal did?
What are the privileges you're talking about?
Access to the residence.
Oh, right, okay.
I only read about that in the paper. in a news article. I did not know it, and I do not know it independently of that.
What do you think is conferred when somebody, or what do you think, why would somebody have residence privileges?
If you know.
Well, when I would work for the First Lady, I worked for Hillary Clinton in 1997 to 1999. I had to take material over to her on a regular basis. The way we did that was, I regularly went to the usher's office and they took the material up to the floor, up to the residence. So, you're on the first floor and they live on the second and third floor. People had to do that a lot. I just don't, I don't really know, but I just, it's not so unusual to me. I believe Milan Revere may have had it, but
Do you know if the First Lady had walk-in privileges?
To where?
The Oval?
I do not know. But I don't think I ever saw her in any meeting that I was in the Oval Office.
Did you ever see her in the West Wing?
Very rarely.
Do you know who Ashley Williams is?
I do.
Who is she?
She was a staff person in Outer Oval operations.
She was helping Ms. Tomasini then?
Yes, she worked in Miss Tomasini's office or operations
Did you,
department.
Did you know Ms. Williams previously?
No.
Have you had conversations with Ms. Williams?
When?
Ever?
When I've traveled on Air Force One or hanging out waiting for the president, we'd have idle chit chat. But I've never, nothing really beyond that.
When was the last time you spoke with her?
Maybe December of 2024,
Okay. What did you
perhaps early January.
And what did you talk about?
If you
I
remember.
have, maybe
Don't
she had,
guess.
I don't know. I can't recall. Nothing substantive.
And this would change, but I think you testified or said earlier that you met with the president about once a month.
As senior advisor.
As senior advisor. Okay. And is it in your role as senior advisor? Was your supervisor, superior, was that Ron Klain?
Yes.
Did you ever express to Mr. Klain during this time that you wanted a different role in the administration?
I may well have. Or I might, I don't know. As senior advisor?
Yes, ma'am.
No. Not a senior advisor.
Did there come a time when you wanted a different role?
As staff secretary, I definitely, at some point, was happy to move on.
Why is that?
It's a fascinating role, but I had done it for a year and a half and was interested in more challenging, different kinds of challenges.
If you, even if you weren't briefing him that day, did you see President Biden every day?
Did I see him personally?
Yes.
No.
How,
I'm sorry, what time period are we talking about?
as senior advisor, before October of 2021, when you became staff secretary, did you see the president every day?
No.
Um,
So, different people had the title senior advisor and it meant different things. I didn't see him every day.
What do you mean it meant different things?
Well, I was senior advisor and I had different roles than other senior advisors.
But some senior advisors would see the president every day, do you think?
I don't know if people saw the president. I don't know who saw the president every day.
As senior advisor, did you ever find yourself wanting to speak with the president or needing to speak with the president about something, but you were told you couldn't that day?
No.
Okay, and thank you. In October of 2021, you become staff secretary, correct? The position of staff secretary was held by Jessica Hertz prior to you assuming the role, is that correct?
Yes.
Who is Ms. Hertz?
Jess Hertz is a lawyer. She was staff secretary before I was. I don't really know. I mean, I shadowed her for a day or two. We met a few days before I joined. I think I met with her for the first time on Wednesday. Her last day was Friday. I had several meetings with her and her staff to get acclimatized. I believe she had worked at a tech company at some point. That's basically the extent of my knowledge.
But you weren't friends with her prior to the
No.
vote? We've gone through a few people in this interview, and I think for most of them, you've characterized them as political friends. Did you
Or
have
friend or
Friendly.
acquaintances.
or acquaintances? Did you have any personal good friends in the White House?
I mean, the White House is not a place where you perhaps make a million friends. It has not been my experience. I'd known, I had known Evan Ryan for a while. I'd known Emmy Ruiz prior. I had known a little bit Jen O'Malley Dillon. But I wouldn't say it was a place where, we were, like, it's a high intensity workplace. And I think my experience was that we were all really focused on the heavy workload.
Do you think that's the experience of others in the White House?
If you know.
If you know.
I mean, my impression was that most people were not socializing with each other.
Did you get the impression that Mike Donlin, Steve Ricchetti, Bruce Reed, Anita Dunn, that maybe they were socializing together?
I don't know.
You were named staff secretary in October 2021.
Mm-hmm.
You held the position until May of 2023, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's about a year and a half.
You gotta say something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. My apologies.
Did you move offices when you I'm going to use shorthand.
Yeah.
I recognize that you retained the title of senior advisor. I'm probably just going to say while you were staff secretary.
That's fine.
So, when you became staff secretary, did you move offices?
I did.
Where did you move to?
So I moved, when I became staff secretary, I moved from, as I said earlier, the corner office on the first floor, I believe it was 160, of the OEOB, and then I moved to an office on the ground floor of the West Wing.
And the ground floor, is that the same floor as the offices of Mike Donlin, Bruce Reed, Steve Ricchetti that we went over earlier?
No. So the White House has 3 offices: the ground floor, the first floor, the second floor. So I was on the ground floor. There were Nash Security has NSC has offices on the ground floor, in addition to the first floor.
Is that where Jake Sullivan would have an office then?
His office was on the first floor, but the Homeland Security Advisor, Liz Sherwood Randall, was on the ground floor.
It was a smaller office, I assume.
It was a pretty big office by West Wing standards, pretty small office by OEOB standards.
Did you still answer to Ron Klain in this position?
I did.
And did you have a designated staff in this
I did.
position?
A small staff.
How many would you estimate?
I believe we had probably 5 to 6 staff overall.
Did you have a deputy?
Maybe 7. I did. I hired a deputy shortly after I joined. His name is Alex DeMotts.
You didn't inherit Miss Hertz's deputy?
I did. I inherited him for a while, and then he moved on some period later.
Who else filled that role during your time as staff secretary?
I think it was only those 2 people.
Oh, I'm sorry. You did not inherit Mr. DeMott's from Ms. Hertz.
No, and I did have a deputy, and really embarrassingly, because this will hurt his feelings, I cannot remember his name. But he left a few months after I started.
And then Mr. DeMott's became
Yes.
your deputy.
Yes, maybe it might have been 4 or 5 months after I started, or it could have been in the spring.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure, and
said-
I feel very badly, but I cannot remember his name. I'm bad with names, so I apologize.
And-
But it's in public record, so.
And you said roughly 5 to 7 people worked as your staff, as staff secretary.
Yeah, in all there were probably 7 of us. So I had an assistant, and there were 3 to 4 assistant staff secretaries in addition to the deputy staff secretary.
Who was your assistant?
Richard Figueroa for a time. And then I had another assistant whose name I'm forgetting. This is so embarrassing. It's like the worst foible. Yeah, and then we had assistant staff secretaries.
Can you remember any of their names?
Yeah. Chris Farley was an assistant staff secretary at some point. He was my chief of staff. Zach Leitner was my chief of staff before that. I mean, these are people who are like in their 20s and 30s. There was a woman named, why am I blanking? Danny Young, I believe. I mean, I can get you the names after.
Sure.
Susan Cheng is another one.
How often would you see the president in this role?
I didn't see the president very often in this role. I mean, I had in my senior advisor role, I still oversaw U.S. Digital Services. I handled some events, but generally speaking, I didn't see the president in my staff secretary role.
Isn't the staff secretary in charge of controlling paper flow to the Oval?
Yes, and the way that operated in the White House, which I did not understand to be different from other White Houses, but or at least in the previous White House, the previous Democratic White House, the Obama White House, is that we manage the books, the briefing book, the decision book, and we handed that off to Oval Office operations.
And that would have been Annie Tomasini
Or her staff.
or her staff. Did that surprise you when you didn't get to see the president much as staff secretary?
I had called, when I became staff secretary, I had called previous staff secretaries. So just as preparation for the job, I had called Todd Stern, who was a staff secretary for President Clinton. I exchanged messages with Phil Kaplan, who was staff secretary for President Clinton. I believe I exchanged messages with Raj Date, who was a staff secretary for President Obama. I had spoken to John Podesta, who was the first staff secretary for President Clinton. So in my general parameters of this, this did not seem surprising to me, but I did not get into the particularities and details.
A couple other questions about responsibilities. As staff secretary, were you privy to the president's schedule?
I was.
Did he have both a public and a private schedule?
He did.
Were you privy to both?
Yes.
Did you have a hand in planning and actually scheduling, or was it just you were able to see the president's time?
Yeah, I mean, we had to ensure that the president was briefed for all of his events and meetings, so we got the schedule in that form.
When did the schedule usually start? What time?
9 or 9:30.
And when did it end?
I mean, it could end like 10 or 11.
What was kind of normal?
I'd say 7.
Was it common to use phrases like desk time or POTUS time on the schedule?
I believe there were, yes, I don't know if they used the term POTUS time, but I believe there was desk time.
Desk time. Was that in his public or private schedule?
I didn't review his public schedule regularly, so I don't know if it was in his public schedule, but there were times where it said desk time.
What did that normally mean?
In my experience, the desk time got eaten up by other meetings or crises that would come up. So desk time was supposed to be kind of a buffer time, but in my experience, they didn't seem to have much buffer time.
Were there any other terms used to built in, like, excuse the informality, but non-working time in the president's schedule?
Not really.
Were there any times where he was not available for something that was scheduled?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, my experience with the president's schedule was that it was a pretty packed schedule, you know. The time that I saw the schedule was from October 2021 to, like, I did not have access to the schedule after when I was DPC chair. And so my experience with the schedule was that it felt relatively packed in the sense that you could have desk time on the schedule, but something would arise where the president needed information for a call for a member of Congress. We'd control the information flow of that, so we would organize that call. Like, we'd get the briefing for the call, get it up to the Oval Office. So, you know, just not my general experience that there were just open windows of time. They usually felt like they got eaten up.
What you just described was in your role as senior advisor, though, not as staff secretary.
No, that's a staff secretary.
Okay.
I did not receive the schedule as senior advisor. I only received the schedule as staff secretary.
Were there any other pseudonyms in the schedule for, like, I don't know, let's say like gardening time and it was actually time to take a nap or something like that?
No,
No?
no,
Did the president use any aliases in scheduling?
no. Nope.
And
I'm not familiar with him using an alias ever.
and I think you just said this, but just for clarity, when you became chair of the Domestic Policy Council, you no longer had access to the schedule.
I mean, I saw like what was in the press.
Just a few more responsibility questions for
Sure.
staff secretary time. Did you have any involvement in the production of White House transcripts?
No,
What about involvement in cabinet meetings?
I sat in cabinet meetings.
Did that change? Was that consistent through all three, or was that only as staff secretary?
I sat in cabinet meetings both as staff secretary and as a domestic policy chair. I did not sit in cabinet meetings as senior advisor.
Were you planned in the process for scheduling, or were you involved in the process of scheduling or planning a cabinet meeting?
Not as a regular course. There were occasions where one of my issues would be a significant issue, and then the cabinet staff or cabinet secretary staff or Evan Ryan would reach out to my office or directly.
Were you involved in cabinet meetings in either the Clinton administration or Obama administration?
No.
Do you recall how many cabinet meetings President Biden held?
Overall? No.
Were there cabinet meetings, full cabinet meetings, that were outside of kind of the public view?
Well, he had multiple meetings with cabinet members.
But I'm saying kind of the like big
Full
ones
cabinet?
that had the TV pool in them. Like, how many of those cabinet meetings did he have? Full cabinet?
If you know.
I don't know. I mean, my memory was that they were about once a quarter, once every 6 months.
And then after the TV pool and reporters left, did the cabinet meeting continue?
Yes,
Who
sometimes for quite a long time.
who on the staff in the White House itself usually attended those meetings?
Do you want me to just give you the whole list of names of people who usually went?
A rundown. Like I imagine
I mean, it's
the
a lot of
cabinet
people.
secretaries went.
All the cabinet secretaries.
Staff went.
Maybe by position.
Okay,
rather than
so-
individual names.
So, the chief of staff, all three, 2 to 3, there were 3 deputy chiefs of staff under Jeff Science, there was 2 under Ron Klain. The assistant to the president for legislation, the cabinet secretary herself, the NEC director, National Economic Council director, the National Security Council director, the Domestic Policy Council director, the counselor, Steve Ricchetti, the senior advisors. I don't think Anita Dunn went to the cabinet meetings. The communications director, the press secretary, Gene Sperling went on many an occasion. Sometimes Jeff Science as a COVID director went.
Were you involved at all in setting the topics for the meetings?
I didn't control the topics, but sometimes, we would have a discussion about, they would designate Secretary Becerra to talk about healthcare, and so I would be alerted to that. And I think I was in a cabinet briefing ahead of the cabinet with the president once or twice.
You kind of just touched on this, but if you have more, did the White House coordinate topics with departments and agencies prior to the meeting occurring?
I believe they did, yes. But I also sat in cabinet meetings where it went off topic. The president said to people, "What are your thoughts?"
In both the public and the private version?
Yes, only in the private version.
Only in the private version?
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah. So there was one cabinet meeting where he kind of opened the floor, and there was like a robust discussion between the HUD secretary and Deb Haaland and a few other people. That was not scripted, as far as I could tell.
Prior to the meeting occurring, were there questions and answers scripted in advance between the president and the secretaries?
I believe that questions were offered, and I think that there were answers. Yes, I think there were answers. Although
This is in the public?
this is
part
the
of it?
private section, but also there were, in my experience, there were times where that was ignored.
In the times where it was, I'm going to use the phrase scripted, please don't take anything by it, and if it's wrong, correct me. In those times, did the White House reach out? So if it was Health and Human Services, if it was Secretary Becerra, did the White House reach out and say, Mr. Secretary, can you ask this question of the president, and then coordinate what the answer was going to be? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no. I think the president was generally asking them questions.
Okay, so flip it then. You would.
But I don't know if they called them, or I don't know how that happened. I mean, it wasn't my job to do that.
Okay. In those meetings, was there ever a teleprompter?
No.
What about note cards for the president?
I mean, I believe he had note cards because there was one time I sat sort of close behind him, but I don't really.
You don't know what was on them, or?
No.
To your experience, did the president ever have any kind of script for those meetings? I'm going to call on the Attorney General first, then HUD, then DOD, or was it a little bit more free flowing?
As staff secretary, I would see the materials the president had, and he often had a flow. There was things that they wanted to, as I understood it, reviewing the materials. They kind of wanted to. These meetings were meant as accountability exercises for the cabinet secretary. So he would ask them particular questions and with a plan to have follow-up in between those meetings on those topics. I was in cabinet meetings where it felt pretty free-flowing at particular times. I was in cabinet meetings where it kind of felt scripted. I was also in meetings in between, after a cabinet meeting that Jeff Zients had called, where he was trying to hold people accountable based on things the president had pushed on onto the cabinet, or sort of like requested of them.
And you said, like, most of the time it was the president asking the questions of the cabinet. And I don't remember if you answered this explicitly, were the cabinet secretaries provided those questions in advance of the meeting?
I don't know if they were. They may well have. I
You
think
don't
they.
know?
I think they sometimes had. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think they sometimes had their, a staff secretary might have seen some like outline of an answer or something.
Did you ever hear any concern from a cabinet secretary that it was overly scripted or they lacked access during those meetings?
I had heard that they were boring.
From who?
I honestly don't remember, but it was like kind of a thing that they were boring.
From the secretary level or from the staff?
Oh,
that
it might
sat
have
in
been the
back?
staff level, but I felt like people had kind of complained that they weren't like, I mean, sometimes I was in a cabinet meeting that went for 2.5 hours. Like it was long.
That would explain how desk time gets used up, right?
Yes.
All right.
A good example.
So as staff secretary, sitting, I'm gonna ask just some broad questions
Sure.
about the contours of that job. You were sitting on the ground floor. The Oval Office is on what floor?
The first floor.
Part of your job was to control what papers made it in front of the president, right?
Yes.
Did you find that to be an awkward system, that you were sitting away from the Oval Office?
I believe I had the same office that staff secretaries had had for like 30 years. I mean, I had the same office that the staff secretary had or at least in the beginning of the Clinton White House. So it might not have been the same office as staff secretary had in the Obama White House, because they had made the position a deputy assistant to the president, and President Biden had elevated back to an assistant to the president.
So,
So I did
Well-
not find it particularly awkward. I mean,
what was the mechanism, like, if you needed to get a bill from Congress signed by the president, what was the process by which that happened?
so David Kalbaugh was the law clerk. He was, or the clerk for the president. He's clerk for the White House. That is a career position. I believe David Kalbaugh had worked for every administration since President Clinton's administration. He had worked in the Trump administration. He would give me he would email me when legislation had passed, like when the time horizon had, our 10 days, the clock started ticking. Sometimes he had flexibility with other, with the House of Representatives or the Senate to determine when to get it, but there wasn't maximum flexibility. So he would alert me.
Mr. Kilbaugh, you're talking
Mr.
about.
Kilbaugh would alert me to that the clock was ticking, and I was often on email chains with the Annie Tomasini or her designees. And Louisa Terrell, who was Assistant Secretary of Legislation, and we would be sort of managing this process. And essentially, we would get the bill from David. David Kalbaugh would receive the bill or go to the Hill and get the legislation. We would receive it in staff secretary. And then we would coordinate, we would hold the bill until there was a time where the president could sign the bill. And then the president, and then we'd send it up to Outer Oval Operations. They would have the bill. The president would know, like often there was a bill signing, there was a picture. The president enjoyed those. We got the picture taken, the bill would come back, or there would be a bill signing. Then we would get the bill and we would give it back to the clerk.
Did David Kalbaugh, is that C-A-L-B-A? Is that what-
Kalbaugh.
Thank you. Was David Calva then responsible only for those documents that were coming from the Hill?
No, he dealt with, executive actions of the president. So, executive orders, he reviewed those, letters to cabinet secretaries, proclamations, the
So-
whole suite.
He was ultimately in charge of getting these documents to Oval Office operations, is that correct?
No. Just to restate.
Sure.
David Calba would get the document, like, let's just say legislation, right? A bill passes, we have 10 days. He would get the legislation from the House or Senate. I don't remember the names, maybe it was clerks too there. He would get the bill. He would bring it to my office. I often had bills like on my desk. We held on to the bill until, it was my practice to hold on to the bill until we had a time by which the president was signing the legislation. Then we our office took it up to Outer Oval. We would see the president, often there were pictures, pictures or events around the bill signings. Then the bills would come back to us and staff secretary, and then we would hand it off to David Calba
Thank you.
to be enrolled or whatever the right process was for legislation. And he dealt with the Federal Register as well.
Was it the same process for pardons and commutations?
No, the pardons were the pardon process, I believe, operated through White House counsel.
So staff secretary had no role in getting the president's signature on a pardon?
We had a role in the decision-making around the pardons. And I honestly just don't remember, and you may know, whether the president's signature is required for pardons. He did hand sign some pardons. Those were the pardons that I'm aware of that he hand signed were the ones in which they were prisoner exchanges for deals to release American hostages.
Do you know the name Rosa Poe?
Yes.
Who is she?
Rosa Poe had worked in the COVID office with Jeff Zients. I don't know what her role was there, but later moved to the National Security Council and I believe was in their exec sec operation, and then were moved to be, I guess, like chief of staff or counselor or something, or a senior advisor to Jeff Zients.
Was she involved at all in the pardon process?
I don't, the pardon process in general?
Yeah.
No, not that I'm aware of.
And then one last kind of like communications question. Did anyone have the ability to send emails on behalf of the chief of staff or Bruce Reed or Mike Donlin? So sometimes it comes up in Outlook as like sent on behalf of Jeff Zients, but it would show up as looking like it came from Jeff Zients. Do you know if anyone had that ability?
I don't think so. I'm sorry, just say that again. On behalf of? Say what you asked your question again.
Did anyone have access to email accounts in order to send emails on behalf of? So if someone had control or access to Mr. Zients' calendar and sent out a calendar invite, it would say a calendar invite on behalf of Jeff Zients.
Oh, that might have happened. I just don't know.
Okay.
Like, I just don't recall. Yeah, I think it came. I can't remember. It might have said on behalf calendar invites, but I don't really remember emails like a substantive email that ever said on behalf of.
Okay, thank you.
You previously said, I think, that the president hand signed certain pardons, the ones that had to do with prisoner exchanges. Is that
Yeah.
your understanding? How did,
Now, I just have to say, I cannot remember if it was like the pardon or the decision to do it. That's just
To make the exchange?
to make the exchange.
So were there pardons where President Biden's signature would appear on them that he did not personally sign those?
I don't, I mean, so I just want to say, as staff secretary, I believe I dealt with one group of pardons, maybe two. They were pardons that dealt with people who had marijuana, possession of marijuana, or had some like equity issue involved. And I remember a decision memo that went up to the president, and I remember getting the decision memo back. And you know, we had a protocol for decisions for the president. It was a protocol that was established in previous administrations that I followed, which was we had a decision memo, which had a box at the top of it. The decision memo described the decision itself, gave pros and cons, etc. It said at the top, agree, disagree, further discuss. We also had a decision card on top of that, which synthesized the decision and also had that card. The president traditionally signed both of those. I believe there was a decision and a decision card for those pardons. That series of pardons happened, I believe, in something like December 2021. Now, I just don't recall like the president signing anything directly. We just did have a decision.
So were you responsible then for when pardons or commutations came down? Were you ultimately in charge of, were you the one who needed to get President Biden's signature on those documents?
They were treated like other decisions of the president. So I had I assembled the decision. I mean, a decision memo came to us. We edited the decision memo. As I recall, the decision memo was it was a decision memo, and then it had materials for each of the pardons. And then we had a decision card. I worked on those. I put it in the decision book. The president received a decision book every day, and I remember getting the decision card and memo back.
What were the circumstances where you wouldn't have a decision memo or a decision card for something? Were there ever verbal authorizations?
I think there was only one time where I had a verbal authorization from Ron Klain, which I required that he write to me, and it had nothing to do with the pardon. It was relatively pro forma. But in our decision process, even Ron Klain would take a decision memo and get it signed and give me a decision card back.
Were you still involved in the decision book after leaving the staff secretary's office?
Other than sometimes I had to get decisions, and I would then distribute to the staff secretary.
Do you recall the process changing at all?
I don't know. It didn't feel different to me because our process for the decisions were, someone, we'd have a conversation about what the decision was, why it was needed. We'd work with the policy team, general release policy teams. We'd work with the policy team. I edited decision memos directly as staff secretary. I worked on the card. We would put the decision, depending on the timing. Some are on a slow roll that could go into a decision book. Often the president would have meetings around decisions. Now I established a process that once a decision was made, I would alert the assistants to the president who were authors of the memo. So after I left, I received those as Domestic Policy Council chair when I needed a decision. They did the same to me. So as far as I could tell, at least that element of the decision-making process was the same. And we did decision memos for the operation. So it didn't feel different, but I didn't, I don't know.
You weren't centrally involved.
I wasn't involved.
Yeah. Again, it's to the best of your recollection, that one instance you remember of Mr. Klain authorizing something pro forma without a decision memo, was that specific to staff secretary, or was that your whole time?
No, it was when I was staff secretary, otherwise I wouldn't.
You wouldn't necessarily know?
No.
Okay.
And it was, I remember it being, I don't remember the issue, but I remember it being a relatively pro forma issue, and I required that he sent me the email, and then we handed that off to Dave Cobbaugh.
What was important for you to be in that email?
That Ron Klain was ascertaining that the president had decided. Like the process we used for our decision memos was that the president signed in 2 different locations. He signed the card, and he also signed the decision memo.
You said it was pro forma. What was the decision?
For Ron Klain, I just don't remember. I just didn't see it. It wasn't, something that I was in any way concerned. Like we did.
It was just the process wasn't followed, right?
Yeah, it wasn't I also believe it wasn't an executive, it wasn't authorizing the use of the Autopen or anything like that. It was just a traditional decision, but I like to be persnickety about that.
It wasn't signing a bill or signing
No.
a card,
And,
nothing like that.
in my tenure at the president, as you know, there's a Office of Legal Counsel decision that the president could sign a legislation by Autopen, but in my experience, in my tenure, the president did not sign any legislation by Autopen, and in fact, we took a bill halfway around the world in order for him to sign the Ukraine legislation in person.
In the decision memo, did it say authorized to use Autopen or authorized to affix signature or anything similar?
No, it did not. It was the established practice of the prior, as I heard directly from staff secretaries, and also in my conversations with David Cobbaugh, that this was the established practice of prior administrations. I believe both Republican and Democratic, but I can only really directly attest to Democratic administrations.
You've brought up Autopen. What was the Autopen used to sign for documents, to your knowledge, as staff secretary?
I mean, what categories of
What
documents?
categories of documents?
Yes, so there's broadly kind of 2 categories of documents. One is letters. There's tens of thousands of letters, maybe hundreds of thousands of letters that the Autopen is used for. And then there are particular executive actions of the president that some range from exceedingly pro forma, but still, require a signature. Commissions, for example, it has been, as I understood from Dave Cobbaugh, the established practice of administrations for at least 50 years that commissioned officer signatures would be autopenned. Sometimes presidents autopen them, very rarely. And then there's all kinds of executive actions for the president. So that can be, for example, a continuation of national emergency. To step back. Whether you continue sanctions on a country that is under sanctions. So every year, a continuation of national emergency is, every year sanctions have to be reauthorized by the president under the power of the national emergencies. So, might not be the biggest decision of whether the president was going to re-up Iran sanctions, but we needed to have a decision from the president to do that. So that's the kind of thing that we would have decision memos around. There are a lot of those, so there's a lot of decision memos around that, and then from executive actions to the president, and then we had decisions that would pertain to a regulation or a policy process which didn't require an Autopen signature. But you're asking Autopens, right?
That didn't require Autopen
Okay,
signature?
so I'm sorry. There's decision made. We had a lot of decisions, some of which required Autopen, didn't require Autopen. There's a use of the Autopen, when we use the auto pen for executive actions of the president, not for letters. The president, there were some exceptions to letters in which the president would sign. It was his habit to sign military condolence letters by hand. But everything else was basically auto-penned. For auto-pen use for executive actions of the president, that could be a proclamation, specifying a particular action. It could be an executive order. It could be a letter to, it could be a kind of letter to cabinet secretaries. We had a process by which we had a decision memo for the president. We had a decision memo around the use of that, around that action, and then the card. And he assigned his signature as a matter of course to both.
And it was only when those two documents were returned that the auto pen could be used.
Yes. I mean, not could be used. I mean, there was a time or two we only got the card with his signature. Now, I also reviewed these memos. He often made dots on the memos. He wrote notes. He would come back with questions. We'd have to, I always had to review them because he might ask a question in which there would have to be a follow-up meeting.
So it was a decision memo for the underlying decision, and then a decision memo for the use of AutoPen.
No,
Is
there
that-
was one decision memo
Okay.
for the underlying decision that authorized the use of the auto pen with the decision.
And then a card that was the synopsis of the decision memo,
Yeah.
and the
Yes.
president
Signed
initialed
both.
or signed both.
So in the decision memo regarding the actual executive action, it would have a line that said, "I authorize the use of AutoPen for this."
I don't know that it did.
I'm sorry if I'm
No, I'm
misunderstanding.
sorry if I'm not being clear.
I thought you just said there was just one decision memo regarding the decision itself, and in that memo it said whether or not you could use the AutoPen for it.
No, it would just authorize the decision and the form of decision, either use the auto pen or didn't use the auto pen. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, so you had a-
executive orders always had a signature, so it was like authorizing the use of the auto pen for that. But some things he would decide, like a policy, or would get a decision card, and he wouldn't use there was no need for an auto pen.
So you had a separate memo that said executive orders need to be wet signatured except for A, B, and C, legislation wet signatured except for A, B, and C, that kind of thing?
I mean, I think I talked to the clerk about what was needed for those categories.
But
I'm
actual, I'm trying to get at so you said the president hand signed, I think all legislation was what you said?
Yeah.
Including flying one halfway around the world. Did he hand sign all executive orders?
He did not. He hand signed many executive orders, but he did not hand sign all executive orders, which
So
I
how-
understood that to be previous practice. as
How
well.
was the decision made on which one got auto-penned versus which one was hand signed?
The president would make that, or the senior advisors would make that. It usually was like, did he want to have a signing event? Did he want to sign it? I would be informed that he wanted to. I mean, it was traditional practice of whether he wanted to do a signing event for it or not. My understanding was that this was a normal practice of both administrations, of all administrations prior to.
Were there, you said the president or senior advisors would make it, were there ever executive orders auto-penned with just based off senior advisor authorization?
No, you mean like without a decision card with the
No,
president's
like
signature?
the actual pen itself was just using the auto-pen decision did
No.
not involve the president.
The chief of staff. So when I entered the role, I believe there was a memo from the chief of staff to the clerk, and I believe this is a standard practice, designating me as a person who could authorize the use of the auto pen.
All right, that's what I was trying to
Oh,
get
sorry.
at, if there was any
Oh, yeah,
kind
so
of
that's
guidelines on how it was used,
Yes.
what it was used for.
Yes, so believe the auto pen. I had a memo yes, there was a memo when I started that authorized my use of the auto pen, and my deputy could authorize the auto pen, and we were commissioned officers, the only commissioned officers. Now, I oversaw the use of the auto pen for executive actions, and my deputy oversaw the use of the auto pen for only for letters, correspondence.
Last question, I know we're a minute over. Were any other staffers authorized to use the Autopen?
I cannot recall if Ron Klain was authorized to use the Autopen, but I don't believe, he never used the Autopen during my tenure.
Thank you.
Go off the record.
And, oh, can I just say
We'll
one more
go
thing?
Back on.
So the way the Autopen worked is that David Calbaugh's office actually controlled the Autopen. So when we use the Autopen, it would be that I informed David Calbaugh and he would have his staff actually Autopen the document. And, you know, he's a,
You never personally auto-penned a document?
I didn't even see it, the process, until late in my tenure. And as I said, David is a career official who'd worked in both Democratic and Republican administrations, including President Trump's.
Thank you. Go off the record. I understand that you had something you wanted to clear up for the record.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a few clarifications. So just want to say that Michael Hockman was my deputy when I started. One of my staff secretaries was the one I referenced is Danny Shulkin. And then just to clarify the process, there was the established practice the established practice that I followed from previous administrations. There was one memo that there was one process for executive actions that could include the use of the Autopen or not, and there weren't separate memos around the Autopen. So just wanted, I think I was confusing on that topic, and I just wanted to clarify.
I appreciate the clarification.
My apologies for that.
On that point, you've offered a lot of detail during the proceedings today in an effort to be helpful to this committee, which we all appreciate. Just wanted to highlight that the matters you've been speaking about are complex and in many cases occurred several years ago. So just to be clear, the facts and the detail that you're providing today, you're providing to the best of your recollection. Is that right?
I am.
Yes. Thank you. And then just one other matter I wanted to clarify. You made mention in the previous round of desk time, the president's desk time. And I believe one of my majority colleagues referred to desk time as non-work time. I just wanted to clarify that that is not in fact the case. It is not so, as I understand it, that the president was not working during his desk time. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So desk time was always work time. It was always, like desk time could be the president was making calls to members or calls to leaders or calls to overseas. Desk time was often eaten up by, a briefing of the president on some issue that had just happened. That's how I saw desk time. Desk time was the president was like in the Oval Office working and managing issues.
Executing his official duties.
Absolutely.
Thank you. No further questions from us.
Okay.
On the record. Ms. Tanden, you just mentioned that what activities President Biden did during desk time. How do you know what activities he did during desk time?
I often received a schedule after I received a readout of the president's day for the record, so I was able to see how the president spent his time.
And that detailed what was done during desk time?
Yes.
And who authored that?
I believe it was Outer Oval staff.
I'm sorry?
Outer Oval staff monitored the descriptions of his time.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Tanden, I'd like to keep going on some questions regarding the workings of how you did your job as staff secretary. And I'm just hoping that you can clarify for me, not having been the staff secretary, this dynamic with decision memos and the decision cards. So, is it correct that while the president wouldn't sign everything that needed a signature, and sometimes those things would be auto-penned, he would sign the underlying decision memo and decision card that would authorize that action?
Yes, so as I, just to lay out the process, the president has to make a series of decisions. Many of those decisions are some formulation of executive action for the president, executive action. He's authorizing executive action for the administration. Not all of them are. Some of them are policy decisions, others, but many of them are. In that case, we would have the standard protocol that I used, that I was following from previous administrations, was that there was a decision memo that outlined the decision, pros and cons. It provided substantive information, and then there was a decision card. And as I noted earlier, on both the decision memo and the decision card, there was three options. Agree, disagree, let's discuss, or need further information, or discuss further. I think it might have been discussed further. It was on both of those. He traditionally signed both. Sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he would check off further discuss. Sometimes he would write a note of particular questions. Then I would take that whole material to the principal author and say, President's looking for additional information. I would tell the chief of staff. That was a process.
So the yes, no, let's discuss options, that wasn't a check mark or an X in a box. That was President Biden's signature next to those things?
Yeah, it was often his initials, JRB. Sometimes he would sign, often it was JRB, and he signed on both.
And to be clear, if those two came back, was an authorization to use the Autopen.
Yes, I read that as an authorization to use the Autopen, and that was a protocol that I had established with both the previous staff secretaries as well as, I believe, with Dave Calbaugh.
And to be even more clear, you read it as an authorization to use the Autopen if it was only a yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, only for yes. There were times where he said further information. People went back to him and no action was taken.
Why not just sign the underlying thing if he's going to be initialing a decision memo?
So the president's time is the most precious resource in the world, in my view. It's one of the most precious resources in the world. Many of these decisions are kind of pro forma decisions. For example, the use of the Autopen was required for the sanctions policies. Some of these are relatively quick and rote, so you could kind of combine this quickly and make the decision at his house, like at night. So that was I think this whole process developed out of shortening the amount of time. But the president did sign executive orders by hand. We had, as you could probably see, there were many, many, many public events around executive orders that the president signed.
Just for clarity, you said continuing sanctions is something the Autopen is required.
I believe
do you mean
it
a
is.
signature is required?
I believe a signature is required.
All right, I just want to be...
Yes, a signature is required.
Okay,
I believe a signature is required.
I just wanted to be
Yes.
extra special clear.
Yes,
there
yes.
wasn't anything.
Yes, as I understand it, as outlined in the OLC memo from 2005 that established the power to use the Autopen to sign legislation, a power that in my tenure President Biden did not use, but I know other presidents have used. no legislation talks about Autopen, it just talks about the signature, but it has been established practice by OLC that, or it's determined, legally binding to use the Autopen.
So some executive orders from President Biden were signed via Autopen, correct?
I believe so, but I cannot remember which ones.
But how was the decision made whether an executive order would be signed by Autopen or not?
I mean, I think they were subject to the president's schedule, like whether the issue rose for him to do an event around it, or, I mean, my sense was that he signed by hand a lot of the executive orders, but I don't actually recall the difference, whether there was executive orders. Yes, there were some executive orders. There was one on Native American. There's one I remember, Native American missing indigenous people that he reviewed, and then we used an Autopen for, but I don't remember all the details of which were executive orders he signed and which he used for the Autopen, but generally there were events around executive orders.
Forgive me if I missed this, but who makes that determination whether it's gonna be Autopen or hand? You said the schedule was a factor, but who's making that determination?
If you know.
I mean, I think it often was the chief of staff. Or other, like those people deciding his schedule. But I don't know the full extent of it.
You said you never operated the Autopen.
No.
Who did?
As I testified earlier or spoke to earlier, David Calba oversaw the operations of the Autopen, and there are career staff who actually used the Autopen.
So, do you know any of the actual staff who were using the Autopen?
No,
You don't know their names.
no.
Do you know how many there were?
I believe there were at least two.
Do you know how many Autopens were in use?
I believe there's one and a backup, but I don't know for sure.
Do you know where the Autopens are?
They are on the 4th floor of the OEOB.
Do you know if there was a Autopen in Delaware?
I don't believe so.
Do you know if there's an Autopen anywhere besides White House grounds?
I don't believe so.
Did situations ever arise in which you would just go get President Biden's signature on a document that needed to be signed?
Well, yes, situations arose where we would, I mean, one good example is the president chose to he chose a process where he had to sign for any increase in weapons for Ukraine. So I don't believe that was required by law, but he set up a process where he wanted to essentially ensure that he was deciding on any increased weapons for Ukraine. So in that, we had a quick memo. Sometimes those decisions would move quickly. We would take, we would have the decision memo. We handed it to at our Oval Office operations, and they handed it to the president. And then we would get it back relatively quickly. That happened one time. Our office sent it up at like 3, and we got the signature back by 4, I think.
I think you made reference earlier to when you became staff secretary, the amount of interaction you had with the president actually decreased. Do I have that right?
Marginally. I saw the president maybe once every 6 weeks after that. There were times where I went in to talk about a decision. That didn't happen very often. It was my experience that was also not the case for prior staff secretaries. They're usually handled by policy staff or senior staff. So I saw the president probably less frequently, but not, it might have been once every 6 weeks, once every 2 months, not once every 7 months or something. I also went on trips with the president, saw the president in that process.
How often did you travel with the president?
I think I went to two or three trips with the president. I didn't travel that often. I sent my staff.
Where'd you go?
I went on the trip to Poland and Brussels. I went on a trip to, this is my time as staff secretary.
Yes, ma'am.
I went on a trip to, the president was doing a voting rights speech in Atlanta. I think those are the 2 trips I went on when I was staff secretary. Oh, and I went to Los Angeles for the June Summit of Americas, I think in 2022.
Any trips as DPC chair?
Yes, I went on multiple trips as DPC chair.
A handful, a dozen,
Somewhere between 6 and 12.
all domestic, or did you go on foreign trips?
I only went as domestic policy chair.
Yeah.
Only got to go to domestic policy.
I have to ask the question.
No, I'm sorry. That's fine.
Did you ever go to Delaware?
No,
Did you ever go to Camp David?
no.
But when the president traveled, somebody from your staff would travel with him.
Yes,
Why is that?
because we were in charge of the information flow to the president, so we would handle memos. If people had to get briefing material to the president, they would send it to our office. That person who was with the president would, make sure it was in proper order, hand it off to Outer Oval Operations.
While you were serving as staff secretary, did the pace at which things were being auto-penned ever increase?
No, not that I recall in any way, shape, or form.
Did the mix of items that were being auto-penned change at any
No.
point?
Jake asked, but ask again because I'm still unclear on it. I think you said the schedule might have been the primary driver on when it was going to be a wet signature or when it was going to be auto-penned, except for legislation. And the chief of staff primarily made that decision. Is that fair?
I mean, the president personally signed a lot of executive actions. There were kind of pro forma things that he would agree to. I saw a great one that honestly became the bane of our existence for the CNEs, the continuation of national emergencies, which were the sanctions. So that's the kind of thing that we always auto-penned. I think my sense is every administration has auto-pen, has used the auto-pen for those, although I don't know for sure. I think there were things, higher profile issues, the president signed, lesser profile issues, we would do by auto-pen.
Is the decision tree documented anywhere, or was it kind of just a staff decision on this was high profile, you should sign it himself, or this can be pro forma and just go through the auto-pen?
I don't believe there was a decision tree. But we just basically went off past practice. I will say I had a weekly meeting with the clerk. I always, wanted to make sure we were following protocols. We were well within established protocols.
And then the decision memos themselves, you get them back. What did you do with them after the decision was made?
We separated them apart from other materials, and I believe they're all in the archives.
As staff secretary, was it ultimately your responsibility to make sure that the items leaving the White House with President Biden's signature had gone through the proper process of getting that signature, whether through Autopen or President Biden signing them himself.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by items leaving the White House?
Whether it was a bill, whether it was a pardon, whether any action taken by the president that required his signature, did that responsibility ultimately fall on you?
I mean, the way I perceived in my role was that my role was to oversee the decision process and get the president's approval or disapproval. You know, I mean, I consider my role is to just ensure he was getting the decision and he made whatever decision he wanted to make, and I was part of that process. So I didn't understand. I didn't really conceive of my role as making sure all legislation was approved. I was like trying to get the decision from him. I guess I'm not really clear on what you're asking.
I think he's asking, were you responsible for putting out the decision to the outside world? Is that
Yes.
right?
Oh, yeah, well, I would inform the assistants to the president who made on the decision, and then they would, you know, operationalize that process. So people would then inform communications if that was necessary or other steps.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say there was a 5-page bill that needed to be signed by the president. And through whatever process, President Biden signed the wrong bill. He signed a draft or something like that. This is hypothetical.
Yeah.
Would that mistake ultimately be your mistake?
And let me ask you, did that ever happen?
No.
That, to your knowledge, President Biden signed the wrong document or the wrong bill?
No. But I could have been David Calbaugh and I worked together. And he was under our broad auspices of the staff secretary. But, you know, ran his own department. So if he gave me the wrong bill and I gave that to the president, you know, I don't know that would have been my fault. Could have easily been Dave Calbaugh's fault. So I'm not totally understanding the nuance of I don't mean to lie to your question. I'm just not totally understanding.
Is it your responsibility as staff secretary to make sure that the president is signing the right document?
Yeah. I mean, if broadly speaking, sure.
And you would only see the president maybe once every 6 weeks.
Yes, but I saw his signature regularly. You know, he made notes on memos, you know, like.
Did you keep a log?
I believe, I keep a
Wait,
log.
a log of what?
Yeah.
You know, you making sure that all the decision memos that you got that were yeses had signed outcomes.
I believe we kept a log or the law clerks kept a log, but we ascertained that there was a signed signed decision card and memo for everything that and it was an affirmatively signed decision card for any action that we were taking.
I'm saying more, so like, you got the decision card on, today's Tuesday, you got the final decision card on Tuesday.
Decision card and the decision memo. It's a package.
Yes, well, she said not always, but most of the time, yeah.
Rarely it was not. Very rarely.
You get that on a Tuesday, the plan is to sign the actual underlying measure on a Thursday. Do you then go back in an Excel spreadsheet and go decision log signed Tuesday, bill signed Thursday?
So we had a briefing book for the president, and we had, basically, I had a staff member who had a tracker of the decisions, and they would note in the tracker, when we got the decision, when the decision came back. So yes, there's a record that I believe in his staff secretary materials.
Did the log include whether or not it was auto-penned or wet signature?
It always included his signature.
But there wasn't a category in the log of used auto-pen on this day?
I don't believe there was.
I know that you stopped being staff secretary in May of 2023, is that correct?
Yes.
Who took over the position?
Stephanie Feldman.
Who is Ms. Feldman?
Ms. Feldman served as Deputy Domestic Policy Advisor to President Biden and the administration, and I had worked with him for years before that.
Were you friendly with Ms. Feldman before?
Not particularly, no.
Did you stay close afterwards?
No.
Did you ever speak to her about how she was doing as staff secretary?
Well, sometimes I felt that she was over-editing my memos. And maybe once or twice I had noted that I had been staff secretary.
So you know what should be in a memo.
And it felt as though I had some sense of what the president's memo should have. But I think that I only said that once or twice.
Do you know if the Autopen was used for pardons of various individuals, of anyone,
During what period of time?
during your term as staff secretary?
So we had, as I said earlier, we had a decision memo during my tenure of, there was a group of pardons that I believe were about fundamentally, people who've been experiencing COVID, COVID lockdown in prison. I don't really remember the details. I believe that happened in December of around the fall, winter of 2021, 2022. I do not recall if there was an Autopen used for those. But there may well have been, I just don't know. I just can't remember if an Autopen was required for pardons by the president or just a decision to the pardon attorney.
Was that batch the only pardons that you recall?
Under my tenure, yes, I only recall doing one.
You only recall doing one batch of pardons? Is that what
Or
you're
they
saying?
could have been commutations, honestly. I think they were commutations and pardons, maybe commutations.
So, if the president didn't want to sign pardons himself,
Oh, no. I'm so sorry. There's the regular pardons, okay? Then there was this was like domestic pardons. Then there was a group of national security actions that were essentially, they were prisoner trades. So as part of the prisoner trade, the president had to pardon or commute some like Russian person or something who was in an American prison. And those pardons or commutations, which I do not remember what they were, he specifically signed those, and that worked through the National Security Council as well as those went through the National Security Council,
so
whereas traditional pardons went through the White House Council.
but I think you said earlier that only you and your deputy and maybe Ron Klain had the ability to authorize the use of the Autopen. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, but is it possible then for pardons that somebody else was authorized to use the Autopen for pardons?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know.
You don't think? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So, is it your understanding that all pardons were signed by President Biden himself?
All pardons.
Is it your
Under-
understanding that all pardons issued by President Biden were signed manually by President Biden?
No, I don't believe that there was a group of pardons that occurred during my tenure. There's two groups of pardons that I recall. One was his national security pardons, which he signed. And I don't know that he signed the pardon. He might have just signed the decision memo around that, but with like a signature on an actual memo, not just a card. Okay, then there was the pardons that I was responsible for that happened in the winter. There was a number of cases. I don't remember if he signed that. I don't believe he signed, I know he didn't sign it by hand, and I don't believe, I can't recall if it required an auto pen or not. That's what my testimony is.
Okay, I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm just trying to understand the logic here. Are you saying that President Biden, there may be pardons that President Biden issued over the course of his presidency that don't have a signature at all then?
Yeah, I just don't recall, like, if a signature was required for the pardons. That's like I can't remember.
Sure.
Just to say, in my tenure, I only had these two experiences that I can recall. So, it didn't feel very unusual to me, because we definitely got the decision card I remember the card and the memo for those domestic pardons. And I just don't recall, right at this point, I don't recall if there was an auto pen use for the pardons or not.
So you don't know if President Biden signed the pardon for Hunter Biden?
Well, I wasn't staff secretary.
I understand that, but my question is, you don't know if President Biden signed the pardon for Hunter Biden?
I mean, I have no idea what happened with that.
And you have no idea if President Biden signed the pardons for the other family members, the pardon that was dated, I believe it was dated January 19th, but it was released January 20th of 2025.
My last day in the White House was January 17th.
So you don't know?
I do not know.
Were you ever told that President Biden had to be woken up to sign something that you needed signed for during your time as staff secretary?
No. I'm trying to, no.
Are you sure?
Sure.
Was there ever a point where you needed something signed where you couldn't get to him?
Nope.
Did you ever talk to Mike Donelon, Steve Ricchetti, or Bruce Reed? I can break it up. Did you ever talk to Mike Donelon about needing to get the president's signature on an item?
No.
Did you ever talk to Steve Ricchetti about getting the president's signature on an item?
No.
Did you ever talk to Bruce Reed about getting the president's signature on an item?
Like, often. Bruce handled policy. He was the deputy chief of staff for policy. So a lot of decisions, particularly on policy matters, he would take to the president. So he would be there was often a morning meeting that he and Jeff would discuss various policy issues. So I went to Bruce relatively regularly around getting decisions from the president. As staff secretary, I should say.
Sure. Did Mr. Reed ever, did he communicate back to you that the president had signed off on this and his decision has been made on a particular item?
Well, I always work to get the card and the signature. I don't think I ever just took Bruce, I cannot recall a single instance in which I just took Bruce Reed's word for anything. I had the card, and I would make sure that we had a signature back from the president.
And it's not because you distrusted Bruce Reed, it's just because you had a process that you needed to be followed.
Yes.
Did Bruce Reed ever say, did Bruce Reed ever just say to you, the president is okay with this, please get it signed, and then you push back?
No, he never said that to me. He never said, here, like, we have a agreement, and, or I got the president to agree, and you should just act like it's signed. That never happened.
Did you ever face, were there ever any uncomfortable conversations with Bruce Reed about how you wanted to go by the signature card and signature document, and Bruce Reed, for whatever reason, was not helpful in that situation?
No, I mean, he knew that the protocol, and I will say, I sometimes have a reputation for toughness, and I always require the signature card, you know, and I will say, I insisted on the signature card, you know, with everyone, so everyone knew. There was never like, I never had dramatic pushback. I think early in my tenure, there was a very pro forma item, and I can't remember, it was someone in the exec sec department of the National Security Office sort of asked, and I was like, you always get the signature. I need the signature. So I was a stickler, and I heard that I was sort of the point of pride with staff secretaries is to be a stickler on these issues.
And just so I understand, would there come time, recognizing that you would see the president maybe once every 6 weeks, were you ever seeing the president and he just said to you, I assume he used your first name, but
He did.
You know, Miss Tanden, will you just get throw my signature on that document?
No.
No. So
No, he also knew that he knew the process was that he had to sign the signature card, he had to sign the card. And, you know, I mean, it was like sometimes when I was in DPC, he'd be sort of ready to get the card and sign it when a decision was made.
No shortcuts allowed, and he knew that.
Yeah.
the president answered to your system.
Well, I felt like it was a system that was good for all of us.
Were there ever situations in which you were trying to get a signature from President Biden for a long period of time and you couldn't get that signature?
No. I think, you know, we really had a process, and I explained this to everyone. We needed to give the president a week to make decisions. Lots of things happen in that week. He had a week to make decisions, you know, but that was also, it never really went beyond a week. Now, there were times the president just chose, he would make a series of decisions on the decision book and not make a decision on something, and I kind of took that to mean that he did not want to proceed. And sometimes, usually the chief of staff or someone would go talk to him about it, and it did indicate he didn't agree with the decision.
So the president had a week.
I mean, this was our process.
Sure.
Like, he's the president, so I can't like push him around. But
The president had about a week to sign a particular document that you might
To decide.
yeah,
to decide. Thank you. Once you got the decision memo and card,
with his signature,
with his signature.
agreeing to the action.
How fast would you get the signature on the applicable document?
You mean the Autopen, if it was necessary? or
If it was
required?
necessary,
If
yes.
it was necessary? I mean, our process was to do that relatively quickly. I don't know if, you know, what we did is we had an email or a notation on an underlying memo that we would send to Dave Calbaugh. So we had basically communicated to the councils, to the clerk's office, and then, you know, I think their practice was to get it signed relatively quickly, but I don't know if sometimes that waited a day. I tried to inform the assistant to the president, you know, within an hour or so of receiving the decision. That was my practice.
Your practice was within an hour of receiving the decision, the document would be signed by the.
No. Within an hour of receiving the decision, I would inform the assistants to the president who were in charge of the decision or the underlying matter. I would inform them that it had been decided, we would also simultaneously inform, or often my staff informs the clerk. He managed, the direct application of the Autopen, and I don't know how long that took. I mean, I imagine my sense of it, it was relatively quick because you want these things to go quickly, and there are times, there was one, there are times where people are working kind of all hours. We had a letter to a foreign leader on a Saturday evening. So, my sense is it was relatively quick, but that was the actual application of the Autopen was handled by Dave Kalbaugh.
Could it have been a couple days, that process, for the signature to actually be applied to the applicable document?
I would find that very surprising. I'm not aware of any situation where it took a couple of days, but I can't attest that that didn't happen since I didn't oversee the use of the Autopen, like directly, or its direct application.
You mentioned that you often spoke with Bruce Reed about getting decisions from the president. Who are the other individuals that were typically getting decisions from the president?
The chief of staff got decisions from the president on a regular basis. It depended on the subject matter. Jake Sullivan got a lot of decisions from the president. He got I think all of the national security decisions. In addition, there are a range of sort of pro forma decisions that would go into the decision book where the president would just decide. But it was mostly Bruce Reed, Ron Klain, Jake Sullivan. Occasionally it would be I think occasionally they would come from Brian Deese, NEC director. But yeah, I think those were the usual routes.
Thank you.
I'm going to reveal that I've never operated an Autopen, but
They're not terribly interesting.
Does that mean you haven't operated it?
I have operated an Autopen before.
We have some questions for you.
Yes, exactly.
How many different Autopen signatures were tied to the Autopen?
What do you mean?
I mean, one Joseph R. Biden Jr., one Joe Biden, one Joe.
Yeah, what are you-
Something like that.
That is what I mean.
Yeah.
Do you program an Autopen?
Yeah, it is programmed, and I believe they had one or two signatures. But I think this is a better question for David Kalbaugh. But yes, I think they have one or two signatures, and there is an Autopen. Obviously, it's only for letters for the First Lady.
So the one or just to the best of your the one or two signatures. I know there's some like the informal letters he sends would sometimes just be signed Joe. Then,
Yeah, I mean, I think
obviously it's like
there's
Joseph R. Biden on executive orders and things.
I think there was, as I recall, but I mean, this is like, I don't remember well, so this could easily be wrong, but I believe it was Joe Biden and then Joseph R. Biden were the two signatures. I don't know that there was a Joe, but like there was
Yeah.
two, like for letters, you might do Joe Biden, for like executive actions, it would be Joseph R. Biden.
Are you familiar with any, if there was a point in time when one signature changed to another, to a separate signature?
Yeah, I mean, I recall a conversation with David Kalbaugh, and I can't remember his name. There was another office under us who handled records, the Office of Records Management, where there was some discussion of, you change the Autopen once every 2 years. So you'd go get a new signature.
Is that the physical pen? I think
No.
he's asking about the different forms, like Joe Biden versus Joseph R.
No,
Biden.
no. So I think like the idea, I think this is, had happened in like I think we had some discussion where they were like, the standard practice was that in the next 6 months or something, we should get a new signature, because signatures change. And standard practice was to do that every year or two. And I think that I had left the job before that happened.
And that's just changing the programming on the Autopen itself.
Yeah, I mean,
not
like, you get a
yeah,
new signature from the president, and then they program it.
I think we can turn away from the Autopen for right now. I think we'll end our hour here. We have more questions, but we can go off the record for now.
Tanden, to your knowledge, are you aware of any instance where an executive order was issued during the Biden presidency without President Biden's knowledge or authorization?
No,
Are you aware of any instance where a presidential memorandum was issued during the Biden presidency without President Biden's knowledge or consent?
no,
Are you aware of any instance where a pardon was issued during the Biden presidency without President Biden's knowledge or authorization?
I'm not aware of any instance like that.
Are you aware of any instance where an order granting clemency was issued during the Biden presidency without President Biden's knowledge or authorization?
No,
Are you aware of any other instance where a presidential action was issued by the White House during the Biden presidency without President Biden's knowledge or authorization?
I'm not aware of any instance like that.
Nonsense. We'll go off the record.
Okay, Ms. Tanden. Just a quick follow-up question on process, and then we can move on. The decision memos and the cards,
Yes.
Those-
I'm sorry, I didn't say.
those were handled mostly by oval, outer oval operations. Is that correct? And by handled, I mean people from oval operations were the ones who would go deliver those to the president. Is that right?
No, maybe I was unclear, which I apologize. There were two kinds of, there were kind of two kinds of processes. So for materials that didn't require, a discussion or a big conversation, the president had a decision book. This is a process that I believe every prior president followed. At least I did, and I ascertained for sure that it was President Clinton and President Obama had this process where some decision memos, ones that were generally more pro forma, would go into a decision book. That decision book, we would assemble the decision book. We being the staff secretary, when I was staff secretary, the staff secretary would assemble the decision book. I reviewed every decision memo. I edited decision memos. That was a core function of my responsibility. That decision book we would, with the briefing book, hand that decision book with the briefing book to the Oval Office operations, and they would get it every night, somewhere between, 5:30, 6:37, whenever the president left. And we would refresh that decision book every day, or every other day, depending on decisions. And then there was a whole series of decisions that would travel through the chief of staff, or Bruce Reed, or Jake Sullivan, and they would take those decisions in. And then there were decisions, and these generally flowed through the chief of staff, where there would be a meeting or something with a decision card.
And you weren't part of those meetings, right?
Very rarely. So there were a few occasions where I went into the meeting. I went into the meeting with the president on an issue. It was usually something that, there was often the chief of staff would have a morning meeting with the president, and on a few occasions I went in on those. Sometimes that was about a decision to veto legislation, or not veto legislation. There was a series of those decisions that went to the president regularly.
And then you would, from your perspective, the next time you would see this decision book or the decision memo or the decision card, it would be with Joe Biden's initials or his signature next to it, right?
Yes, and often I reviewed the memos. He often had, the president would kind of dot as he went through a memo, so I looked for whether he wrote notes, whether he had any questions, whether he put a question mark. Sometimes you put a question mark in a section. And if there were notes, I would send that material also to the assistant to the president.
So from the time that the decision book, the decision memo, the decision card leaves you and then comes back to you is a bit of a black box. You're not involved in that middle portion very often when the president is reviewing the book, reviewing the card, reviewing the memo.
No, but I looked at each memo that I received back to ensure that it had the president's signature.
Thank you. I want to change topics. I actually want to go back to the conversation that you had with Jake Tapper over drinks.
Mm-hmm.
That was a few months ago?
Yes,
Do you remember when? You might have said, I'm sorry.
it was. I believe it was after the election and before Christmas. I don't remember specifically when. Maybe after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have my record from my time in the White House. I did not maintain my scheduling records.
Did you, it's my understanding that you met him with the understanding that you were just going to have a social event and
Yes,
talk
at Bucks.
at Bucks.
I remembered.
And
Thank goodness.
we will confirm. No. Why did you think you were meeting him?
I mean, he literally asked me to get a drink, and I've known him sort of casually as I was on his show a lot. I've seen him, his like 10, 15 years ago, like we both were used to go to the same public pool in Bethesda, so I've known him a long time. So I thought I thought it was a social call. I mean, I'd never had drinks with him before, but it was also after the election, and I thought maybe you just want to shoot the crap about it. I don't know if that's a technical term, but
Technical enough. Did you, and Alex Thompson was not at those
he was not present.
And did you shared some stories about your families and kind of small talk, is that right?
Yeah.
And then Mr. Tapper brought up that he was writing a book, right?
Yes.
And it was your understanding that Mr. Tapper was writing a book about Joe Biden's decision to run for re-election, is that right?
It was his decision.
You said it was a campaign.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
I mean, I thought he was really centering on the president's decision not to run for re-election. Like it was about, that's what I recall that conversation about.
And you weren't involved in the president's campaign very much, right? In
Right.
2024. So you wouldn't have been a very good source for a book about the president's campaign, right?
I didn't think I was.
Mr. Tapper did write a book that touched on the president's campaign to some extent, but he wrote a book that was also a review, maybe a critique of the president's decision to run at all for president. Are you familiar with that?
Am I familiar with the book he wrote?
Yes.
I am broadly familiar with the book he wrote. I have not read the book.
Uh,
But I've read some of the coverage of the book.
And is it your understanding that part of the thesis of the book is that Joe Biden was impaired either physically or mentally?
I understand that that is what the book alleges.
Do you think that's a false narrative?
I can only tell you my experience. And I worked far more closely with the president in the time I was Domestic Policy Council chair. My experience with the president was that we often had a robust back and forth on issues. I felt like I had to be very prepared because he could ask questions on really complicated issues. I had occasion to discuss complicated Medicare drug negotiations with the president. So of the public reading of that book, it did not align with my experience. The public, conversation did not align with my personal experience.
You said you had complex conversations with the president.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever attempt to have complex conversations with the president and he was not able to engage in those kind of conversations?
No.
Throughout your entire time in the Biden White House, did you notice Joe Biden increasingly aging in terms of his physical condition?
Yes, I noticed that he was aging in terms of his physical condition. I noticed that, he shuffled more.
Did it take him longer to answer simple questions?
No, I did not have the experience that it took him longer to answer simple questions.
Did he deliver meandering answers sometimes?
I mean, every politician I know has delivered meandering answers sometimes. I've started my career working for Bill Clinton.
Point taken. But as you worked 4 years in the White House, roughly, right?
3.5 years, yes.
3.5 years in the
Almost 4
White
years,
House.
yes.
Did the rate at which President Biden would deliver meandering answers increase?
Not in my experience. I mean, he told a lot of stories in the first year, in my experience, and he told a lot of stories towards the end of his administration. I mean, if there was a few more stories, I couldn't really ascertain, but it wasn't my experience that he told, he was far more meandering, towards the end of the administration than the beginning.
But as you were, course of your day-to-day, talking with people around you in the White House, in EEOB, did you ever get the impression that people were talking about Joe Biden becoming more meandering in his answers, for example?
I mean, I didn't have conversations with people who thought he was. I didn't have any conversations with people who thought he was getting more meandering. I mean, my experience was that, he could tell a story that, was relevant to the discourse that we were having, and could, sharply recall instances when he was a city council member. But I was not tracking, nor did I have any conversation with anyone that it was getting, there were a lot more stories towards the end than when I started as DPC chair in the beginning of the administration. I mean, he told a lot of stories on the beginning of the administration. My first meeting with him, we had a whole conversation about the ACA, went into a long story about the ACA passage.
Let's talk about the 2024 presidential debate. Did you help President Biden prepare for that?
I did not.
You were head of the Domestic Policy Council at that point, correct?
I was.
Pretty fair to assume that domestic policy would come up in the course of a debate, a presidential debate, isn't it?
Yes, so Bruce Reed was in debate prep for the president, and I provided information to Bruce Reed. My staff worked with Bruce Reed's staff on debate prep materials, but I was not in debate camp or in any debate preps for the president.
Do you know why?
I don't.
Did you find that odd that you weren't?
I wasn't tracking whether previous domestic policy council chairs were in previous debate preps, but I don't believe the DPC chair was in the debate prep for President Obama in his reelection, so it wasn't my impression that Cecilia Munoz was, so I don't think I found it super surprising.
But beyond being the head of DPC, you also had previously, many years before, been in debate prep with Joe Biden, had you not?
Yeah, I had.
Did you think that you could add value to this debate prep for Joe Biden and his upcoming debate with President Trump?
I mean, my experience is a lot of people are trying to get into things, and that was just not my MO. So people knew my skills. I talked to Bruce Reed about, he was putting materials together. My team gave him materials.
Did Bruce Reed communicate with you ever during? I think it was a week that President Biden was preparing for this debate with President Trump. Is that your understanding?
Yes, it was.
Did Bruce?
I mean, I think they had prep sessions, but it was my impression that there were some prep sessions before the week, but the intense debate preparation was in the week before.
And did Bruce Reed during that week ever call you?
He did.
What'd you guys talk about?
Childcare.
Meaning President Biden's policy position on childcare?
Yes, like the specifics, like how his plan on childcare. I think the president had a specific question about how his proposal on childcare would be allocated at the state level and whether there would be a state share, how much the state would pay and how much the federal government would pay. I think that was the president's, as I recall, that was a president-specific question. So Bruce called me, I answered Bruce's question, and I believe he shared, my understanding is he was sharing that with the president.
Did you ever ask Mr. Reed how debate prep was going?
I don't think I directly asked Bruce, but in one of the 8:45 meetings or 8:40 meetings, Jeff Zients, who's chief of staff, sort of had Steve and Bruce on the call, and I believe one of them said it was going well or fine.
Did you ever hear from anybody else who was helping prepare the president for his debate about how it was going?
In debate camp? Or debate prep?
Yeah.
No. I'm sorry. I think I was at a social event with Ron Klain about a month before. Now, I don't know if debate prep had started. And he was like, this is a big job. He didn't say it was going badly. He didn't say it was going well. He said it was a big job. But I don't know if they'd started the preps, honestly, if that had, at that point, or it was just sort of broad. But to err on the side of caution here, Al, that's my...
How did you understand Mr. Klain to mean that it's a big job?
I really took it as it was like, the president hadn't had to debate in 4 years.
But he had been president for 3.5, so he should have a pretty good grasp of these topics at this point.
I
right?
didn't think it was I did not take that the president didn't have a grasp of the topics. I took it more like he hadn't had to parry in a while.
Where did you watch the debate?
I did not physically watch the debate. I was on a car ride to New York City, so I listened to the debate on the radio off and on, and I searched Twitter.
While you were driving?
No. I was the passenger myself.
Good question.
Good question. Excellent question. My husband was driving, so my husband and I were traveling to New York. I had a long planned long weekend in New York, and so I didn't watch the debate directly.
But you listened to the debate,
I mean, I saw portions of the debate afterwards.
and you were following it on Twitter.
Yes.
What were your impressions from Twitter about how the president was performing during the debate?
I mean, my impression was that he was performing very poorly in the debate.
Did you have any phone calls during that car ride with anybody about the debate?
I believe no, I don't think I called anyone. I might have had a text exchange with Evan Ryan, who told me it was getting better during the course of the debate.
Who was Evan Ryan?
She's a cabinet secretary.
Are you friends with Evan Ryan?
I mean, we're friendly.
She's the one married to Secretary Blinken.
Mm-hmm.
You have since seen clips of President Biden's performance at the debate.
Yes.
Do you agree with the assessment that he did not have a very good debate?
He seemed to perform very poorly.
How would you describe it?
I think he had a poor debate performance. I mean, I've never watched the full debate, but of the clips I saw, I appreciate, I understood how people saw that.
Some of the critiques focused on the president's ability to focus and deliver a message. Do you agree with that?
Based on what you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he performed well, as I said, in the debate.
Some of the critiques are focused on President Biden's appearance and pretty apparent aging. Do you think, you have seen videos now of President Biden's performance.
By the way, she's assuming facts that she hasn't testified to. She said she has not seen the entire
I didn't see the
debate.
entire debate.
I'm sorry, you have seen clips of
Yes, I've
President Biden's
seen
performance.
clips of some of the performance.
Have you, in your 3 years, I guess, previously working in the Biden administration, had you seen President Biden like that before?
No. I was genuinely surprised at his performance. I mean, I found it out of character. I mean, that was not my experience.
Inside the White House, were there any conversations about the president's performance
At the debate or just generally?
at the debate?
After the debate.
Yeah, I mean, after the debate, at I believe 10 in the morning, we had an 8:40 meeting. Usually every day there was an 8:40 meeting with 20 or so assistants to the president or department heads. And at that meeting the next day, Jeff Zients said, he wanted to talk about the debate. Both he and Anita talked about the debate. They said the president had, it was not a great debate. The president, we all concede it was not a great debate. It's one performance. The president has accomplished a lot as president. That's what Anita and Jeff sort of their message was, or what they were saying. And then they referenced that the president was going to have an event later in the day in North Carolina, and that the whole staff should look at what he did in his remarks in North Carolina.
There was public reporting afterward that he had a cold, and that's why he did poorly in the debate. Did that come up in the senior staff meeting?
I believe Anita did say he had a cold.
After the debate, were there any conversations that you were privy to regarding no longer running for re-election?
No. That I was privy to? No.
Did you hear of any conversations around the White House about no longer running for re-election?
No. Everything I ever heard about that was in the paper.
Did you have any personal conversations with the president regarding his debate?
I did not.
What about any donors?
I did not. Let me think. Nope, I did not.
What about anyone from the Center for American Progress?
I did not.
It's been reported both in,
So I should just clarify, John Podesta was not at the Center for American Progress. He was at the White House at the time. The day after the debate, I talked to John. Our entire conversation was about public perception of the debate. And, I think we thought the public perception would be negative.
did Mr. Podesta think it was recoverable?
I don't think we had a conversation like that, but he wasn't thinking he did not communicate in any way it was irrecoverable.
And I just want to clarify, you were at the White House the day after the debate?
No. I was on, the conversation was on the phone. I was in New York.
Thank you.
There was a decent number of reporting, and I think a decent number of aides have since said this, that they wish the president was more public-facing after the debate to kind of quell those concerns. Did you ever advocate for that or hear anybody advocate for that?
On the Monday after the debate, I went in to talk to Bruce Reed about, the debate, what had happened, and I asked if the president, what was the thought about doing, press event, and he said that they were planning that the president would do a press event. It might take a week or so, but it was on the schedule to do a press event.
Did it happen?
I think it did happen at the NATO summit.
That one?
Yeah.
Immediately after the debate, the president and his family went to Camp David for a photo shoot, I believe, with Vogue. Do you recall that?
Probably, yes, broadly happened. I think it happened like Sunday or Monday. He went to camp on Saturday night, I believe. So,
Do you recall any conversations about canceling the photo shoot with Vogue?
no, I don't recall any conversations. I mean, I was domestic policy chair at the time,
You just never know what you hear in the hallways.
Yeah,
you know?
sure. I wasn't involved in any conversations like that.
And then it's skipping ahead a little bit, but while it's in my mind, do you recall any conversations post-debate prior to withdrawal about not running for re-election?
About whether
The president would withdraw.
I mean, like,
With
Nancy-
people in the White House or with?
what do you mean?
We'll start with people in the White House. Were there any conversations? You said I asked specifically the senior staff meeting immediately after the debate if there were conversations about not running for re-election. Do you recall any conversations about not running for re-election between the debate and the president's eventual decision?
I mean, there were no formal conversations I was part of about the president not running. I remember when Nancy Pelosi did her interview on Morning Joe, I definitely, I said something to someone in my office, and I don't recall who. It could have been one of my deputies, where I said, this is really a problem. This is a big issue, right? But I mean, that's the kind of conversation. I was not a part of any formal conversation at all about the president's decision to withdraw or not.
There were a few instances between 2023 and the eventual decision to not run where former President Obama came by the White House or made a phone call to President Biden. Were you involved in any of that?
No.
Your old boss didn't come by to say hi?
I saw President Obama, I believe it was when I was staff secretary. There was an ACA event, and I saw him in the hallway, and he gave me a very nice hug. But we didn't have a substantive conversation.
Looks like you're at the end there, Mitch.
I'm getting close, Michael.
Okay, that's fine.
A couple other re-election questions.
Sure.
Just, whether you heard anything or saw anything. I think I know the answer to this question, but were you involved in any way in the decision to not seek reelection?
No. I wasn't involved in any of the campaign meetings, just to say. There were campaign meetings, I believe, but I was not part of any of those.
That probably answers my next question. Were you involved at all in analyzing, discussing, reviewing polling numbers?
No. I mean, what do you mean when? Like, at any time?
2023 through the end of the election?
I was in a handful of Saturday meetings. Jeff Sines had a kind of Saturday meeting. I was in a handful of those meetings. On occasion, there was polling distributed about just the president's approval. I don't recall more details, but I don't recall, I was definitely not in any meetings like around this time. There were a few that I was part of in, 23 and 24, but I wasn't in any of these meetings like in the month or so before or the month or so after this period.
Some of the reporting was that the polls were not getting to the president, that Mike Donlin was a pretty good filter of bad polls. Do you have any knowledge of that?
I have no idea.
Who's distributing the polling at those meetings that you made reference to just a minute ago?
I mean, they were on the table, so I think they may have come from the chief of staff, Rosa Poe maybe. I remember sometimes she would come in and distribute an agenda with a polling memo.
Did you ever hear about any conversations regarding whether or not President Trump was going to end up in prison while in the White House?
Absolutely not.
All right. Mike Donlin never mentioned?
No.
All right.
After the debate, did you personally think that the president should drop out of the race?
My concern after the debate was that the public, there was a high degree of public anxiety about the president's performance. I did not, sit around thinking about whether the president should get out or not.
Really? I think everybody in America was asking themselves if he was going to drop out or not. You didn't have an opinion either way?
Well, I mean, I was personally, I've worked for the president. There's a great deal of affection for the president. I really thought the whole situation was very kind of heartbreaking.
And what you're telling the committee today is that when you saw President Biden debating that night, that was
Didn't see him debating that night, just to be clear.
When you saw clips of President Biden debating that night, that was a one-time situation, and you had never seen the president behave that way.
Yeah, I mean, I rep the president on complicated issues. He never stopped in the meeting. He never evinced anything like.
And I think you made reference to the NATO summit that President Biden attended shortly after that.
No. So I went to the NATO summit. That's the year before.
No, you said in response to whether President Biden should go more public, that they were planning something.
Yes.
Then
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I thought
that's
you
what
meant
he's
my
referring-
travel plan.
No,
Yes,
that's
the
what he's
NATO
referring
summit.
to,
Yes,
yeah.
I'm so sorry. My apologies. I thought you were asking about what I attended. I'm sorry.
So that NATO summit was, at that event, President Biden confused the names of Vladimir Zelensky and Vladimir Putin. Is that correct?
Yeah. Did that happen? Yes, that happened.
Have you since heard the audio recording of the interview that Special Counsel Robert Hur conducted with President Biden?
No.
Are you familiar with any of the reporting involving that?
I'm familiar with the reporting, but I did not listen to the hearing. I did not listen to the tapes.
I think both of these events were, both the NATO summit and special counsel, her audio with President Biden, showed many of the things that people believe they witnessed during the debate. A president who was halting or confused and meandering.
So my impression of the NATO summit press conference, which I did watch a fair amount of, not the entirety, but did watch a fair amount of the NATO press conference. So my impression of that was that the president had made a mistake on confusing two people's names. Then he answered questions, relatively complicated foreign policy questions, and he answered them with relatively complicated answers that did denote to me a broad but deep grasp of foreign policy issues. So that, that I did not have the impression that you had, that the NATO press summit was meandering or denoted a sense that he didn't understand policy issues, because he was, describing our interactions with Russia, how we were leading in Europe. So I had a different impression.
At any point during the administration, did you have any concerns about President Biden's cognitive abilities?
I did not.
Did anyone in the White House at any point during the administration say to you, express any concerns about President Biden's cognitive abilities?
No one expressed that concern to me.
Were you interviewed by special counsel her?
Sorry?
Were you interviewed by special
was
counsel
not.
her? Were you ever involved in the review or presentation of President Biden's annual physical?
No.
Do you know who was? Outside of Dr. O'Connor.
I think just all I know is from what I read about this after the debate, which is that Doc O'Connor's involvement, and I knew those documents went out.
The letters after
The letters after the effect.
Do you know if they go through the chief of staff's office or press secretary's office prior to release?
I don't know.
Would that
I think it went through obviously the press secretary put it out, but I don't know the rough process.
would that have been a letter that you would have seen as staff secretary?
I did not see it as staff secretary.
Along the lines of what Margaret asked, do you remember any discussions about providing the president with a cognitive exam during his annual physicals?
No.
Do you recall any discussions about use of a wheelchair?
No. Absolutely not.
After the debate, there was a large meeting of Democratic governors at the White House. Did you attend that meeting?
I did not.
Do you know why not?
I think it was a political meeting. It was only Democratic governors who attended, I believe. And I believe it was a political meeting.
On July 8th, 2024, President Biden sent a letter, I believe it was public, that said he was not planning on withdrawing. Were you involved in that letter at all?
In no way, shape, or form.
Along the lines, again, of what was previously asked, did you ever hear any concerns about the president being isolated from members of Congress or the Senate?
I mean, I heard concerns that people, I heard broad scuttlebutt in general that the president, that people couldn't get access to the president. But, I also served in the Obama administration, in which cabinet secretaries had talked about not having enough access to the president. So I didn't denote a much larger scale to that experience than I did before.
That was my next question. Any concerns from members of the cabinet about access to the president?
Yeah, I mean, that's my response.
Just general concerns kind of consistent with
I
previous
mean,
administration.
you know, like in the Obama administration and the Biden administration, I don't remember a specific conversation, but I remember, you know, like hearing a lot, maybe it was in the press or elsewhere or scuttlebutt or chit chatter that, you know, cabinet secretaries wanted more face time, and I remember that very specifically in the Obama administration as well.
Do you recall any directives is probably too strong a word, conversations about shielding the president from bad news? I think it's pretty well known he has a bit of a temper sometimes, and it's been reported that specifically Mike Donilon and Steve Ricchetti, who've known him the longest, kind of like filter information to make it seem less bad. Do you recall anything like that?
I mean, I was in several briefings with the president where bad news was definitely delivered. So I didn't really feel like there was some fiat not to give him information because, you know, like when you're president, you get a lot of bad news and people shared bad news, and that happened in my presence.
I have, Michael might remember this from working with me before, I have a broad question and then a list of names, and if you've ever spoken to them,
Okay.
just to check all our bases, make sure that we can
Oh my
try
God,
to.
that's a long list.
Oh my god.
It's not that long because I've been going through it as we've been
Okay.
going.
Okay.
So any conversations, I'm going to limit the time scope to like 2023 till present, so post administration as well,
Okay.
with any of the following people regarding the president's health, age, or ability to be president of the United States.
So I mean, I guess I'd like to just like differentiate two things in this whole age situation. There were like a lot of conversations in the White House about how the public considered the president's age an issue. Like that was a very rich discourse where, you know, it was like the number one concern voters had about the president was his age. So I feel like that kind of percolated all around. But his capability is a separate
Let's
issue.
limit it then to health or ability to be president.
Yes, okay, great.
First Lady Biden.
No. And the question is, have I had a conversation about these two issues, health or ability to be president, with this person?
Correct.
Yes, okay.
Hunter Biden.
Nope,
Ashley Biden.
nope,
Naomi Biden.
nope. I
That-
mean, just to say, I don't think I met, I'm not sure I've met any.
Answer's no, then.
Oh, sorry, okay. Sorry.
Valerie Biden Owens.
No,
Vice President Harris.
no,
Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff.
no,
President Obama.
no,
President Clinton.
no,
Secretary Clinton.
no,
Ron Klain.
no.
Jeff's.
President, what's the question?
Any conversations with Mr. Klain regarding President Biden's health or ability to be president?
No. I
Jeff's.
mean, just to say, I did inquire about the president, how quickly he was recovering from COVID with Ron Klain. So that's the
That's
health
different.
question.
Yeah, post debate, pre NATO, right? That's when he got COVID.
No, the first time he got
The
COVID.
first time. Okay. Everyone's had it 9 times, so it really doesn't.
Yeah. So it was the first time, not the second time.
All right. Jeff Zients,
No.
Rahm Emanuel,
No.
Bill DeLay,
Haley?
Daley,
Daley? No.
Jake Sullivan,
No.
Anita Dunn,
No.
Mike Donilon.
No.
We already went through. It was no to read and one conversation with Ricchetti in the last 2 months or so where he was upset at the book.
Yes.
Okay,
But not specifically about Biden's ability or.
that's what the
Yeah.
book is about.
No, so he was upset that, I just want to be super clear about this. His concern was that the book was inaccurately describing the president's capabilities.
Jen O'Malley Dillon,
No.
Anthony Bernal,
No.
Annie Tomasini,
No.
Ashley Williams,
No.
Dr. O'Connor,
No.
Kate Bedingfield,
No.
Jen Psaki,
No.
David Axelrod.
No. Can we go back to Jen Psaki?
Yes.
Jen Psaki and I had a conversation after the president, this was I think in 2022, after one of the president's medical
Question was limited to 23 and
Oh,
24.
sorry. But it was not really.
Like regarding the physical? Or,
Yeah, it was just regarding the physical. So it's regarding his health.
Karine Jean-Pierre,
No,
Nancy Pelosi,
no,
Chuck Schumer,
no,
Hakeem Jeffries,
no,
any other senator,
no,
any other member of the House,
no,
and any member of the cabinet.
no.
And all of that just to preclude any further debate is to the best of your recollection, correct?
Yes, it's the best of my recollection. Yeah, no, not on that.
Two kind of like housekeeping questions, and then I think Jake scribbled them down.
Again, this is on his capability and like health ability.
Yes.
Right, okay.
What were the common modes of communication in the White House while you were there?
Email and telephone?
Any text?
No, we did not have text capability on our phones. Or I didn't.
On your government issue?
On my government issued phones.
It's been reported that some of the press shop used Signal. Any use of Signal?
I'd never used Signal with anyone for government work.
And then, famous last words, my last question. Have you discussed this interview today with anyone other than your counsel?
My husband, my mother, my children.
No one other than that?
I think.
Oh, yes, so, like several weeks ago, I had a conversation, like a 15-minute conversation with Ron Klain, and in the course of that conversation, so I think it was June 9th, we ascertained this morning, in the course of that conversation, I said how happy I was to testify. I think I noted that I worked for Secretary Clinton for a long time and never had to testify in front of anyone, and that I was going to testify here, and I think it was like a 2-minute conversation with Ron Klain.
And I told a fib, but I have one final question.
Sure.
I'll let Jake go.
Oh, do you want to ask it now? Oh, okay. Do you believe President Biden is suffering cognitive decline?
I do not.
Do you believe Joe Biden, from the debate, would have been capable of leading the country for 4 more years?
I mean, my experience with him after the debate was that he was handling decisions, he was in command, we had good back and forth on issues. So my response to that is based on his post-debate performance with me, which is that I believed he could.
But if the Joe Biden from the debate showed up to the White House every day, do you think a person like that is capable of leading the country?
But that just wasn't my experience. I saw the president often after the debate. So it's hard for me. I have an experience, not a hypothetical experience. I have an experience, and I have to go off that experience.
I don't think that really answers my question.
No, I think it does. I think it does.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's a hypothetical.
I'm going to ask one final question, and I want to make sure that I get your resume right before I ask it. 3 presidential campaigns and 3 White Houses,
Yes,
and the office of a senator,
yes,
and the office of the first lady.
yes. Well, I will say, I worked in the Obama White House. I technically worked at HHS. But I was on the President's Office of Health Reform, so I worked in the White
And
House
then
office.
detailed to HHS, is that?
Basically.
Yeah.
Or really at HHS, detailed to the
The
White
White
House.
House.
And then at CAP for on and off in there and CEO?
Yes.
At CAP, do you work on campaigns?
No,
You
I
don't-
do not work on campaigns.
You don't donate money to any PACs? You don't have your own PAC?
We don't have a PAC.
Okay.
We do not donate to campaigns.
But fair to say, for the last 30 years, heavily involved in presidential politics?
I mean, I feel sadly about how much you're aging me.
You don't look it.
Okay.
You don't look it.
But that's fair.
Perhaps 24 years.
24 years heavily involved in presidential politics?
Yeah, I've been involved in many a presidential campaign.
Are you an expert in presidential politics?
I mean, who is in these days?
I mean, 24 years of experience might put you there.
That's a rhetorical
I
question. Go ahead.
Yes.
Should President Biden have run for re-election again?
I mean, I can only tell you from my experience, which is the president really overperformed when it came to legislation. He passed major pieces of legislation. He handled really complicated issues like Medicare price negotiation, something that many advocates have asked for decades. He handled, it's not like just he handled, he, was in charge of negotiations and processes. In my time, I saw that, I witnessed that. So that, I can only tell you what my experience is, and from that experience, I saw a president who was in command.
That was an answer to a question, but not mine. Should the president
What
have
is
run
the
for
question again?
should the president have run for re-election again? It's more of a political question and your
Yeah,
expertise question.
It is, but it's not really within the scope of.
It absolutely is. Whether or not he was,
Where is it?
Well, the question actually, if you're asking me if he was capable of running for re-election, the answer is yes. If you're asking me a political question, I mean, I've given you my answer.
leave it to historians, and he did a good job as president.
I mean, he was very capable, he was capable in command when I was briefing him and working with him.
Okay. I'm going to go off the record.
On the record. Ms. Tanden, I just have a few questions for you. I know it's been a long day and we appreciate you bearing with us. One thing I wanted to clarify at the outset, my majority colleagues asked you a number of questions about the Jake Tapper book. And as you told us earlier, you did not read that book, correct?
Yes, I did not read the book.
So my majority colleagues made a number of representations to you about what that book alleges and what it substantiates, but since you haven't read it, you don't have any firsthand knowledge about either of those things, correct?
I do not.
Okay. In your answers during the previous round to questions regarding President Biden, I understood you to draw a distinction between physical signs of age that President Biden may have exhibited on the one hand, and his mental acuity and ability to execute the duties of the presidency on the other. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely.
I
consider those two very separate things.
And with respect to the latter category, the president's ability to do the job, you expressed confidence in Joe Biden's ability to execute the duties of the presidency. Is that a fair summary?
Yes.
Okay. And the president's performance in the 2024 presidential debate did not change your view, is that right?
Yes.
Was it ever your view at any time that President Biden was unable to make decisions about matters within the scope of his presidential duties?
No, it was not.
Or was otherwise unable to execute the duties of his office?
No, it was not.
Did
I
you
should
ever,
just be clear. I never had a view that he could not exercise the duties of his office or that he was not in command of the presidency.
did you ever have any concerns about President Biden's ability to handle significant policy matters?
No.
What about issues of national security?
No, I had no concerns. I handled complicated policy issues with the president. Very complicated issues around Medicare policy, Medicaid policy, very difficult to comprehend for many senior advisors, and he handled those very well.
So to sum all of this up, you have no knowledge that Joe Biden was at any point in time unable to execute the duties of his office as president. Is that right?
That is correct.
That's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, sir.